We are live. Is that okay?
We're live right now. Who said
that all right?
Was okay? No, I'm totally kidding.
I don't know,
totally
man. Like,
fine being live.
You're just gonna drop in. I was gonna say you're gonna drop in, and suddenly it's just like cuts in. And you're like, and this is why I hate Red Zone Rogue. It's like, what? He's like the nicest guy. Why would you say that?
I would never flake.
Tan and Grace, on the other hand, I'm all for.
Take your words back. We work with fine, wonderful people that I thoroughly enjoy the company of.
Well, I appreciate that.
I can't speak. I can't speak to you. I don't know how you enjoy their company.
I enjoy their company with a grain of salt. And
big fan of blood feuds. Is that what you are?
This is why I hate Red Zone Rogue. If there's going to be a blood feud, like or any feud for that matter,
why would you say
that's the kind of feud we're gonna hit. Let me do the tweetables while we wait for this. And all right, we are live. That is a fact.
You gotta love.
We are live.
Ooh, early start indeed. Big ol' early start. I gotta hit the share button. Can someone share this for me? Because every time I click to share it, things happen on my side of things. Flake, can you share this for me?
What am I sharing?
Just be a friend.
Oh, I'll be a friend. I can absolutely be a friend. I'm just sending out a tweet to alert the masses that we're live.
That's what I need to do. Now, do you know who wasn't a friend?
Oh, hold on a second. If we're going down the, because I'm thinking of the Golden Girls theme song where it goes, "Thank you for being a friend," right?
Yeah, I'm following.
Up and down the road and back again.
I'm just gonna hit this button where we're showing our faces. I've had this not on our faces this whole time. Have you been showing our faces?
Well, see, my stream is gonna be different than yours. It's been our face the whole time.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I was like picking at my acne. No, I wasn't doing that. No, I was sitting on. Look, I made a starting soon screen just for this moment. Look, everybody, this is so professional. Boom, starting soon screen, followed by. Oh look, boom.
See, you get all the backstage pass stuff on my stream. That's why.
There you go. Now, if I press this one, it will just kill everything. So I shouldn't press this button. Or should I, just to see what happens?
Science is a fickle beast. I mean, you can kind of tickle it if you want, but I don't know if I recommend it a little bit. But yeah. So as it stands, for all of those in the know and those not in the know, this is the calling in Taiwan. I guess we should go into broadcast mode.
Yes, we should turn it on. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling in Taiwan. We are not at the actual venue, but we wanted to provide you some fun, some entertainment, some context to what is going on for English speakers, because, yes, we are all speaking the common language of great games, and that can cross a lot of different barriers, and we'd like to allow you to kind of watch this and enjoy this in whatever English language that you would like to speak and like to enjoy it in. So that is what we are doing here, right, Mr. Flake?
That's exactly what we're doing, and it's one of those things that kind of just happened in the same regard. I mean, there is the Calling Taiwan, like the official stream that's occurring. However, for those who want an English broadcast, something different, the action is going to be the same. The gameplay is going to be the same, but you have basically opted in for the double doofus combo here, which is us in the wee hours of the morning, because it is currently 1:40 in the morning. I should be well asleep by now.
Yes, yes, indeed. I have a small child who will be waking up at any moment, and then should be going back to sleep. So I should also be asleep right now. But you know what? We're not, because we're gonna enjoy some really cool top 8 games. Here's the thing. I don't really care what we see in the top 8, because it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't impact me as much matchup wise as the level of play. I love top 8s. I love watching sort of like the rubber meets the road kind of thing, single elimination. You know that you have to execute at a high level, and I thoroughly enjoy watching top 8s. I don't know about you. So for me, I don't really mind whatever matchup we end up getting. If it's Starvo v Prism, or Viserai, or if there's like a Rhinar in there, or maybe a Kano, that would be amazing. I don't know what we're going to get, but I'm looking forward to watching it.
Well, I mean, the top eight is like the playoffs, right? It's do or die. There's no second life in this. It's not like you can kind of go X2 and see day two in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. This is really all the marbles situation. One screw up, one misplay, as it were, and you're basically, you could be out of the ball game, as it were. So we don't know what the top eight is currently in, what that roster looks like. But when you say that you love the top eight, it's, to me, that it has such a great appeal because it is the top and the best players that have bubbled up to the top. And yeah, the meta will reflect typically what those decks will be. And Caplo in the right now saying, asking, are there 7 dashes in the top 8? That is quite the. I don't think there were 7 dashes in the whole tournament.
We're
I think
gonna
there was
have
like
to double check. I guess we'll have to check our sources on that
it
one.
could be. It absolutely could be. But the other thing that I really like Armada for me, frankly, is those first few matches when really it is anything goes. And especially when you're watching a broadcast and you don't know what you're getting because you don't know, is it an off meta deck? Is it, you might even pick heroes to feature at the table, but then the cards are a little bit awkward or different or unorthodox. So that to me, I think that the beginnings of tournaments and the ends of tournaments are where all the excitement is.
I think that's a really good point. We were talking about this earlier. I think, what was it, yesterday? It was maybe even yesterday.
Well, it could be 2 days ago because it's 1:40 in the morning here where
I'm
I'm
not
at,
even
so.
sure at this point, but we were discussing that, and you mentioned that exact thing, and I hadn't ever considered that, but I feel it as well as you. So it's
Well,
totally a thing that I think I'm now ascribing to as well, because the excitement of the start of a tournament and seeing what you're up against, or watching these decks that you can't quite predict play themselves out is crazy cool, and then we get the exact same thing here at the end, except it's now not so much off meta. Now it's like these are the ones that have risen to the top, and now it's for everything. It's for all the marbles.
oh, definitely. I also want to give a little bit of shout out, obviously, to everybody out in Taiwan who's participating, all those who are part of the broadcast there. I believe it's Fable who is handling the broadcast locally in Taiwan for us here in North America, offering you guys the English broadcast. So thank you guys for staying up with us, frankly, because I know a lot of you are in the same boat as Armada and I, which is we stayed up late. We basically got the caffeine drip going, and now here we are. But we see you in chat. So Capello, Yost, Static, thank you guys for chilling out. And I know that yourself, Armada, you're currently broadcasting as well through YouTube. So
Indeed, yeah.
we've got options.
We got a nice contingent of people hanging out over here in chat, and lots of people talking about the mental fatigue of top 8 is such a physiological artistry. I love that comment. That's just like poetic at like 12:45 at night. Or
you have T.S. Eliot in chat. Did you know that? Who Mark Twain has made an appearance. Yeah, that's amazing.
It happens to be my Discord mod, so good for him. He's also, I gotta do this shout out because this is like straight up. He provided this coffee I'm drinking. He looked at me, he was like, hey, so I'm gonna hook you up with coffee. And
is that Breezy?
It is. Breezy hooked me up with
coffee.
Oh,
my man.
Thank you, Breezy.
Yes, big ups to Breezy. Breezy has also reached out to me and said, my man, love your content. I need you caffeinated. So how about some of that coffee coming your way? So I'm waiting for it. For now, however, my mug is, I love mugs. We're going to go a little off topic here. This one is a koala bear, which
there
was
you go. My
mother and my sister went to San Diego without me, and they went to the zoo and they got me this koala bear mug.
That's pretty
I don't
cool.
have, well, I mean, it was kind of a little out of left field. I'm not a big fan. I don't have any affinity for koala bears or bears of any particular, but this was the souvenir that they opted to get me, and here it is now, never going anywhere.
I think it's a solid one. There's nothing wrong with that. I would have gotten a mug out, but I poured more coffee than would fit in the mug because I know myself too well. When I have coffee, I will sip it just straight, and I will not stop until there's no coffee, and then I will consider getting more. And so I figured, if I'm going to do this for like 3 hours, I might as well, gear up, have this, I've got that, I've got the water. I'm looking forward to seeing what we play out. I think it's going to be fun, man.
I think so too, and we are just waiting right now. The Swiss rounds have completed. The top 8 is going to be around the corner as soon as that happens. Here, I'll show you real quick what it's going to look like. This is basically the feed that you'll hear us talking over.
Ooh, I'm gonna
But
press 2. Boom.
yeah, just to show you guys that we're not hiding anything for you. They're just basically getting things ready. So as soon as the matches are happening, we will bring you directly into that. We will not hesitate. Midboy Blue and Professor Fennel, welcome to the chat. Thank you guys so much. Same with you, Adam. And yeah, I like when it comes down to it, this is a fascinating time right now, right? Because the first ban announcement that passed was essentially just like a warning shot, kind of like a, hey, everybody behave yourself because, discipline's coming in a few weeks, and nothing was touched. And here we are. And they kind of, they threw on a little bit of extra juice in terms of trying to push Starvo over that ledge, right? And it doesn't seem like it's happening, because from what my birdies are telling me, that the battle hardened in both Taiwan and Madrid was not won by Starvo. So I don't think he's going to hit Living Legend. I don't think that it's even a possibility.
And it's going to be a very interesting thing. It was actually if he doesn't win the Calling Taiwan, if I remember correctly, it was actually not possible for him to hit Living Legend anyway. And so there was always this chance that it didn't happen. And so it is a very interesting time, because it's one of those moments where, whether or not there's a change, I think Legend Story Studios is intending for there and wanting for there to be a change going forward. And so what plays out over the course of, the next few hours and into the next few days and next few weeks could have bearings on what we're going to see at the Pro Tour coming soon on this neck of the woods. It could also just not have as much bearings. Either way, it's going to set up the way that this next few weeks is going to play out in the competitive world of Flesh and Blood in a very real and interesting way, and in one that I personally think, and I'm not sure where you stand on this, but I do personally think that Starvo is going to receive some sort of suspension, restriction, that sort of thing, in favor of some changes before we go into Pro Tour in general. But if you have a different opinion, let me know, and if you have an opinion at home, of course, put that down in the chat, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say as well.
I mean, it seems like it's that bullet has been in the chamber for quite a while now. It seems that LSS is their mentality or their approach here is going to be that they want to address it. I don't think that they want it to exist for much longer. And what they've done essentially is they said, okay, we're going to let it go. We're going to let it fly. I think that they're also very eager to have something actually attain Living Legend. I think that that's also on their radar, that they have this system in place and they want it to actually happen. So I think by not banning anything and by adding more opportunities for Starvo to take that extra steps over the edge and take the plunge, is it telegraphs the fact that that's what they want. They want it to hit Living Legend, but now that it hasn't, now that it's going to fall short, they're going to have to address it. So is it going to be legal at Pro Tour? I think it's going to be legal at Pro Tour. I think that they're going to be forced now to potentially clip its wings to a degree. And now all of those older conversations of what would that change be? What would those bans be? What would those erratas be? Are now refueled.
Yep, back in play. I totally agree. As far as the future is concerned, it's going to be interesting to see if they make an announcement, within the next few days, or if they go like immediate upon release of this, or if they just kind of let it ride until when they talked about they would make an announcement. Either way, as far as today is concerned, Starvo, from what I've been able to watch of the stream, and I will admit that I haven't caught every single game, but I've tuned in each day, today and yesterday, to catch as much as I could and sort of watch the VODs back, has been doing quite well overall in this tournament, which, from what I've been told, was not necessarily to be expected in this meta. And it's important to understand and note that metas are unique to regions, unique to certain play styles within different regions, and there's different overall thoughts on lines of play and just how certain heroes match up against other heroes. And because of that, there was perhaps a thought, or at least from what I've been told, within the Taiwanese community, that Starvo wouldn't be performing as well, perhaps being pushed down by Prism, just kind of pushed out of the meta by Prism in that respect. But we've seen Starvo do fairly well on stream thus far, and so I am interested to see top 8. I know that was asked in chat what the top 8 is. We're still waiting on deck lists for those and just general announcements for those. Once we get those, of course, we'll pass that on to you.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And I like what you're mentioning. And the fact that, again, this kind of always falls back to the whole reality that there's no digital client where there's no global melting pot for metas to kind of be thrown into where all the ingredients are in there. And it's just stirring this massive pot, and whatever the flavor is at the end of the day is what you get. And that evolution is localized in one massive centralized, cauldron, where in reality, it's these smaller, regional metas that you need to take account for. That whatever you're playing, it can be different from your own calling in your own country or state or city or whatever. And then even furthermore, every PQ could be different. Every armory is going to be different. The localized metagame is incredibly important. And that's why, for me, one of the most intriguing tournaments might not necessarily just be Pro Tour, but Worlds in general, or anywhere where people from across the pond and all around the world are going to come together. That's where the fireworks are going to fly, because really these teams, these cabals, these groups of minds that come together to create the decks and steer the meta in the regions are going to clash against conflicting ideologies, which are across and from different places. So that, in my opinion, are going to be great, because you're going to see cards that in some regions people think are just complete hot fire, and in other places think is just not even a sideboard consideration.
Right. I think that's one of the things I actually low-key really enjoy about the fact that there is no online client for this game. There's people that want to have the ability to just pick up and play and just jam and figure out exactly what the best thing is. But I like the idea of there being regionality worked in, and people coming together, sitting with their friends, figuring out what they think is the best deck, and then expanding their circle with larger tournaments and going, oh, you know what? This other group over here, they had this idea, and it worked. Why didn't we come up with that? Let's try it. And then they iterate on that, and then there's iteration all over. It creates, and I've seen this in other communities as well, happen and play out, and it's actually really exciting. It creates some notoriety for different regions for like creating this, or coming up with this idea, or this strategy played out at this moment in this point in time. Now we can point back to that. You can't do that with an online client. It's like, oh yeah, all of a sudden, this deck just became really popular on this online client, and no one knows who really started it, and it's not really connected to anything. It just becomes an archetype, which is cool. But here we have the opportunity to say, it was that meta in this country at that local game store called the Shark Tank. That's what we nicknamed it, because they killed everybody every time you came in, metaphorically. And that was the archetype that
needed clarification.
The world by storm.
There wasn't like a mass murder that occurred. No. But yeah, no, it's very cool, and it leads to this almost like this kind of fantasy espionage kind of world where you want to know what's going on in the other little pockets of the world to figure out and stay ahead of the game. There's this everybody needs the architects who are building the deck, the play testers, but you need this like intelligence department that is constantly keeping their finger on the pulse, their ear to the ground to know what's going on. So that to me is just an extra layer that, again, when the digital clients will churn out thousands of games a day, typically meta games are solved. There's no regionality. I don't even know if that's a word.
I like it. I think it's fantastic. I think that's exactly right. There's no regionality.
But that's the fact of the matter, is that if your only exposure to the game is where you go and play it, and that's why callings are such great barometers. They're like little litmus tests to see where things are going. It's like basically you go to a calling, you're just putting your finger to the wind and seeing which way the wind is blowing, right? So and the most intriguing conversations always occur after a calling, where people are basically dissecting lists and saying, why the hell did they play red lead the charge? Why the hell is he playing glacial footsteps instead of this or that or whatever?
Why is fire breathing in this deck? Why not just run exude confidence? I have many feelings about that. I talked about it on a stream literally like 4 hours ago. Anyway, but no, I totally agree with you. It's 100% the interesting part about it, and it's one of those low-key things that people may not think the step or two down the line that it kind of takes to get to that point, because it's so easy to just want like an online client, or to just want to be able to jam a bunch of games. But who doesn't, right? I mean, that would be fantastic to sit down and jam a bunch of games, but you lose something, a little bit of that personality, a little bit of the connectedness, like from in the flesh and blood, if you go down that route. And I really like the fact that we have this opportunity to kind of, I guess, I don't know, plant our flag as this region or this local game store or this community in this town. That's pretty cool.
The closest I've ever seen to something like this, again, I'm not much into being a competitor myself, but on the broadcast side of card games, the only other card game, obviously, that I've been very intimately involved in is Gwent. And that is a game where when somebody from, let's say there's a big player base in China, and they're very isolated in terms of how they practice and who they communicate with and their streaming community, etc. Their decks that they bring to the world tournaments, like the major tournaments, are always the point of intrigue, because everywhere across Europe, North America, those decks are typically the same, but they somehow do things a little bit differently. They bring the cards, the spicy cards that you never see, the odd strategies, and that's what is more abundant here. And I'm when you said in the flesh and blood, you think that, like, I feel like every time that someone makes that reference, James White is like, yeah, he said the thing.
He did the thing. That's the name of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. So
they're just over there like, yes, it worked.
Yeah, I had that moment. When I watched one of my favorite all-time movies is The Departed. And there's that scene where they're in the conference room and Matt Damon's character says, what was the name of The Departed? And I was like,
he said the name. And then you have to do the meme of DiCaprio.
Yeah, exactly. Who was in that movie?
Hollywood or whatever it was.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. Big shout out to I'm DeFranchise, says you guys are beasts for doing this in the middle of the night. Well,
let's go. We're doing this for you. I'm DeFranchise. That's what it was. I'm DeFranchise.
I'm DeFranchise.
We're doing it for him or her.
Unless it's like, I mean, for them, yeah. I mean, like, can I just say it a different way? Like, I'm Daff Ranchies.
Big shout out to someone in my chat named James White who said, you said the thing, and we did indeed say the thing.
Is it actually James? Is it Mr. James White?
I mean, it's James White, so I'm just going to go with it. If someone, like, created a James White account just to post you said the thing, I would still give them as much credit, because that is dedication.
Said the thing.
We did indeed say the thing.
We're here in the flesh and blood, and we got it. We got it done.
Boom. I mean, virtually in the flesh and blood, right? Sort of.
Oh, I'm DeFranchise is Mr. David Rude. I have been educated on the mystery identity.
He is the franchise, I guess.
So what are you expecting here in terms of the top 8? I mean, we don't have any information yet in terms of what that's going to be. The players are still kind of just wrapping up before the top 8 begins shortly. But, I mean, outside of the standard procedure of that Triangle of Doom, the Prism Viserai, Starvo, that kind of little pyramid of power, as it were.
Sure.
Are there any, like we've seen in the past, like a Chain sneaks in, a Briar sneaks in. I'm desperately waiting for Alexi to really find her legs and get going, because we've seen how close she's come and we've seen the viability. It just seems like everything is almost right except for one little piece. So what are you suspecting might be able to sneak into this top 8?
That's a fantastic question, and one that I want to say was very well set up, but I was totally distracted by how hilarious my chat is, because they're trying to surmise if it's actually James White. So they literally said, he's at least a James White, and then he said, say something only James White would say, so we know you're actually him. I love this. Anyway, as far as what I would expect to see in the top 8, I would expect mostly some combination of the Triangle of Doom, like you mentioned, but really for me it's less Viserai and more Starvo, and with a sprinkling of Prisms. based on just the way that we've seen these sort of matchups play out across the world, not just here today, but as far as this meta, from what I've watched so far, and this is also one of those things where they've put really good games on the stream that have been really varied, and I've really enjoyed that. But there's a surprisingly nice mixture overall of heroes that have been displayed on stream, and I would not be surprised if you saw. It's tough because, like, for example, I was going to mention Reinar. Reinar is one of those heroes that has always just had a solid power level, but sometimes Reinar just gets rolled out or high rolls someone out of the game. There's sort of an aspect of variance that other heroes have as well, and sometimes it's just a little bit more exacerbated with Reinar. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Reinar, but if any of those sort of, I guess, next step down heroes made the cut, for me it would be one of the other Runeblades, because Runeblade is just so powerful in this current setup, in the current meta that we see. I would not be surprised to see like multiple Briars, maybe a chain that can, just really execute well, that sort of thing sneak in. So I think it's really Runeblade season. It has been for a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some Runeblades in there mixing it up alongside
Runeblade.
Right?
I mean, Runeblade season. It's been like a Runeblade calendar year practically, for the most part, in terms of the just sheer dominance of that particular class. I find that Reinar is kind of like Reinar is like your B student, right? It's never on the honor roll. It's not winning awards for most improved or or any of those regards. It's just a consistently decent student that's not blowing it. It's not on the dean's list, but it's also not, it's not getting a see me after class on any of its papers. It's just there. It's consistently getting the job done, but never getting the accolades that it maybe should. And perhaps when Everfest came out, there was a lot of cards that could have helped it. It just didn't seem like maybe, it's the other question here is, frankly, is everything just overshadowed by the fact that Starvo is that good? Is it just, is that the case?
That's a fantastic question. And it's one that I've listened to a lot of really high level players talk about, or as much as I can, as far as what would happen if Starvo does get knocked in some way, shape, or form, and how the meta shifts based on that. And it's really tough to see and say right now, how it shifts, because I feel like if they shift one thing, then the possibility or the capability for them to shift multiple things across multiple classes is more open. And so it's really sort of just like, and this is why it's dangerous to a certain degree to go like, this is exactly what's going to happen, because really there's so many straws that could be like moved, and there's so many levels that could be changed overall. But I was, I remembered something while you were talking. I remembered something. You mentioned Lexi being sort of like, you want to see Lexi go over the precipice. We actually did see, I think it was at the end of yesterday, or it might have even been today, actually, a Lexi player take down a Starvo playing like the no fuse style aggro Lexi, and fairly, I don't want to say fairly comfortably, but as I was watching the game, I was like, oh, they're taking that damage just because they're going to set up their own big turn and swing back. Generally pretty comfortable playing into that matchup, and there's a chance that a no-fuse Lexi, if they have snuck into the top 8 somehow, could start rolling through a couple of these classes, a couple of these heroes that might also be toe-to-toe with it. I'd be really interested to see if Alexi does make it into a top 8 scenario, what ends up happening, because that no-fuse list is no joke.
It's typically geared up as an aggro list, and this is what sometimes you fall into that trap of, okay, if I'm going to be playing Lexi as an aggro build, is this aggro build better than, say, Chain? Is this aggro build better than Briar? Is this aggro build better than an aggro Katsu, let's say? So you typically fall into that kind of decision tree where, well, it's maybe like a smidge more powerful, but the variance is and the reliability of it is not as great. It doesn't have the same high end. It doesn't have the same explosivity as, let's say, a Briar could potentially jam out there. It doesn't have the widest turns that maybe something like a Briar may have. So it might scare people off when you do have already the good to go built in, right out of the box aggro lists like a good chain player would
Mm,
maybe already lean on, given the fact that it's already an established list. So I feel like experimenting with Lexi can be problematic because you're usually trying to make use of those arrows and the bow,
hmm
etc. And a no fuse, just go nuts kind of um, a build it might be a little bit more clunky, in terms of having to fire arrows out of your arsenal, even though you might be supplementing them with things like snatch and things like e-strike, etc. But
Sure.
ultimately, you're kind of losing a little bit of what her luster is. But seeing her succeed either way, it's pretty damn awesome.
I will say, I think there's a lot of people that may be sleeping on that deck in general because I do think the power level is probably higher than a lot of people realize because of the consistent damage that it can actually put out. Especially because Endless Arrow can just loop itself. Like for
Hmm.
example, in that game, the Lexi player had two Endless Arrows consistently looping back and forth into their hand for a solid 3 turns in a row. And that coupled with a variety of other arrows that you put out on your turns, and then of course ending arsenaling endless arrow, going the whole process again. If your opponent doesn't just commit to get rid of those endless arrows, it's pure value over time, but you're also just pushing 12 to 15 damage a turn if you're just saying no blocks, and you end up just racing. And because you're putting out that much damage, like from turn one, you're favored to a certain degree into something like Chain, which really snowballs over time, right? Plays
Hmm.
for like a mid to late game when they hit Shackle 5, things like that. Then they start going ham and that you just can't stop like that amount of damage. But Lexi's doing it from turn 1 with like a 6 card hand, thanks to the fact that you can like Voltaire Arsenal on your opponent's turn twice. And so there's some sneaky goodness in like the pure aggro no fuse Lexi, in that it's oftentimes just going to race you down. And the variance, like you mentioned, is there. If they can't get there across the finish line, then they just can't. But the fact that it has some toes to race you down with is underratedly good. That being said, we have no clue if there's a Lexi in the top 8.
Not an
Uh,
idea.
Not
Not a
even
single shred
close.
of ideas.
It could be 8 Kanos. There could be a secret Benji that just like cut through all 2 days, just OTK'd their way to victory. I don't know. Maybe Icelander is, showing up early. But we could also, I don't know how long we have. I don't want to start this amazing topic that we're about to talk about. But we could also just sit here and talk about all of the amazing spoilers that we've seen up until this point for Uprising and Icelander, because I am so incredibly excited, including Raman Putra in chat said can't wait for Uprising. Neither can I already, because the spoilers that have been released and the fact that we're getting Icelander in Classic Constructed is just chef's kiss style. Like, it's so good. I just want to be able to do that like right now. I was sitting down and I was building a like an Icelander commoner list, and I was going, man, I just want a couple more ice cards already. Just let me see some more ice cards so that I can start playing. I just want that. That's how I feel about these spoilers. I don't know how you feel about them, but I'm so hyped.
Oh, well, the first ones we saw were awesome, and just like the first ones were kind of maybe a little bit overshadowed by the fact of the knowledge that, hey, we're getting Icelander and an adult
Mm,
Icelander. So that in itself was, I'm like, oh damn, they're really flushing her out, and they're really going to give her some tools to play with. She's not just some random young hero kind of I don't want to say throwaway, but you know what I mean.
sure.
Something that was meant to just be a blitz deck, and here she is now getting a lot of help, and one of which is a card that I am all about. First of all, the new mechanic of just freezing things, pretty damn
Yes,
cool,
that is
and
awesome.
like this new keyword of freeze. Obviously, when you have heroes that are well in tune with various different levels of um, elemental kind of like
Okay.
you know manipulation and whatever. Freeze to me seemed like
Sure.
something that was good. Frostbite to me, I thought was just what it was going to be. That this
hmm
was going to be what that was. Something along the lines of, you pay the tax and whatever. But just locking something out entirely. And what we've seen is that it's not just a hero, it's their equipment as well, it's the arsenal. So there's incredible amounts of versatility with what this can with what this freeze mechanic can do.
Yeah.
And now there's cards that are creating arcane damage based on how many frostbite tokens are left at the end of your turn. Like that's incredible. That is just
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
And I love that the counterplay. I love that the counterplay to that card is not to destroy the aura that is stuck to you, but the counterplay is to just pay for the frostbite tax so that you don't take the damage. That is so just simple. From a design perspective, it's like, okay, so if we wanted to, and of course there could be like, let's just destroy this aura, like pick an aura, destroy it. Could be that in the set as
Right.
well. But just from what we know right now, there's a simple card that stays with you forever and punishes you if you don't pay for something to a higher degree, if you don't pay a tax. Okay? But you don't have to take the damage if you don't have a way to destroy it. You can just pay the tax instead. And so there's this really cool balance of abilities there where you could either just choose to take the damage and use your life as the resource, or you can use your cards as the resource and build your deck fundamentally differently if you're playing up into this meta or in this hero that you're expecting this card to come down on, so that you include more pitch cards, more blues, a different line of play depending on how you're playing up. I think it's fantastic. I am so incredibly excited for all of those cards. And I think the specialization, the one where it shows her just like casting down all the ice, which is why, by the way, why I picked these why I made the ice border here.
I have mine ready to go, but there's some sort of weird thing that's. Oh, hold on a second. Did I just fix it? Hold on. I gotta move you for like a half second here. There we go. So we do have a little ice thing that I got to put it back on the stream. Also, I'm getting a little bit of word here. First of all, I just want to say big ups. Say hello to Gabe Scher is in the chat as well as Luda, and I think I missed Nudra as who's come through as well. So cheers to you, Gabe Scher, somebody who schooled me in the arts of brutes over many sit downs of
Speaking
just being
of brute master, I've got Right Time Gaming in my chat. Ian, the I don't know, preeminent brute player ever. I think he's attended more actual events and only plays brute. No, it doesn't only play, but has attended more actual events playing brute than anyone in history of Flesh and Blood. That's so cool. All these people hanging out. I like this. This is nice. We should do this more.
We should do this more. And honestly, I think we might do this more. Again, Taiwan and North America, different sides of the earth. So we're going to be up late, but it's all good. I mean, the beauty of the internet is that we can be here. I just need to also double check. So I was getting a little bit of messages from people saying that my microphone might be just a little bit less, what's the word? A little bit less loud, as it were, as you. So if people want to just say, I've made a couple adjustments, so let me know, because I can't hear myself. So I don't know if I'm coming through loud and clear or not, but ultimately,
testing. 1, 2, 3. Am I too loud? I don't know.
I think I'm coming in okay. I made a couple adjustments here. Luda saying that can't wait for ninjas to have no fun. I honestly believe that. Now, when it was thrown at me as a question a while ago, I thought that something like Shadow Ninja would be a really great addition, because the shadow cards could help supplement Levia, and Ninja could get a new hero with a talent associated with it, and who knows what that would be. So I thought that could be damn awesome as well. But Ninja was what I was first introduced to when I learned the game. It was my first hero. Katsu and I have quite the intimate relationship when it comes to getting involved with this game. And that to me is the hero I feel. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are like, Mechanologist needs some help, or Levia definitely needs a little bit of help as well. But if it was up to me, man, I would say Katsu and Ninja in general could get a little bit of help as well.
I have to say this right now. Mansant, I see you, and I acknowledge you are also a preeminent brute player. And in fact, I watch all your videos, and when you say something's good in brute, I believe it, because you're way better at brute than I am. So I salute you, sir, and you deserve all the shout outs. Also, Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just about to say that part of our job as broadcasters and as content creators is to just completely kind of give the right of way to better players to tell us what is good or not. Because as you know, as well versed as we may be in the game, there are definitely better players than you and I. And I mean, Steve, I know that you're like this, like up here, right on the top echelon of just awesome human beings.
Oh, I thought
Okay?
you were telling me I was tall. I was like,
Well,
not that tall.
I've met you. You're not. Listen, I mean,
I'm like,
no.
I'm average height. I mean,
But-
that's even, I mean, I don't even know.
But-
You could argue that, I guess.
But height and stature, Mr. Cookus, two different things.
There you
Let's
go.
get real
See,
here.
that's-
Let's get real here. But that's
There
I
it
got
is.
you, buddy. But when it comes down to it, I always give the right of way to the better players that I talk to because I trust their judgments on things. And you know, if somebody who's like just a brute lord is saying that no, there's something there, you know, I'm gonna trust it, and that's always great. And when it comes down to it, like if people are like, oh, there's something there with this no fuse Lexi, or there's something there with who knows what, like that's what's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you don't know these things until you test them, obviously. But as do cards are going to come trickling out for Uprising, I'm immensely, you know, just tuned to find out what the hell is going to go on in terms of how this meta is going to shift. But it's going to come after a banned and restricted announcement. It's going to come after the Pro Tour. But you know, when it comes to Uprising, is there anything that you want to see specifically?
Oh man, you're talking to the guy who literally lost his mind while playing a game with his oldest son when the announcement went out. Like, I was sitting down and I was playing like I was playing Zombie Flux. You ever heard of that game? Zombie Flux? Like, I think I have it. Oh yeah, if I move it, another board game's gonna fall because my kids put things back in like Tetris forms. Okay, so we were playing that. I saw the announcement because my phone was blowing up, and I looked at it and I freaked out because this is my favorite region in the game. Volcor, by far, aesthetically, lore-wise, my favorite region of the game by far. What has become my favorite class is represented there, which is Wizard. Because wizards are really cool. I love wizards. And now we have cards released for the newest wizard and has become one of my favorite heroes in Icelander. This was the moment for me. It was like it all kind of lined up. It's like when Brute players get Savage lands and get the Brute cards they want. That was this for me. And so as far as what am I looking forward to? Literally everything is the answer because it would be very difficult for me to receive this set with anything other than enthusiastic praise and just clapping. I don't know what would have to happen for that not to happen, but I'm not interested in learning about that. I just want to clap, and maybe that makes me too positive of a person, but I'm quite excited. As far as things that they could do, I really think Assassin fits nicely in the lore here, and if they are indeed going to print a hero or a class, or I should say, if they're going to print every class in the lore book, that thing over there, they're going to do that. They got to get to Assassin sometime. So it could fit in this region. Technically they could fit it in Mysteria. They could just put an Assassin in any old storyline. This is the beautiful thing about Flesh and Blood in a lot of ways too, is that they are creating a card game that has fundamental roots within the lore. Like, they're investing, and even more so lately, investing in the lore, the storyline, the characters that we all care about. Because as you were mentioning earlier, players are experts on their heroes. Some players have just straight up picked, like Mansant, for example. Levia, 100%. Well, 98%. I don't want to put words in your mouth because you're still there hanging out, and I love that you're still there. I don't know. But all Levia all the time. If you want to know more about that hero, you look at that person because they've invested into that. It's that level of investment that people like to put into a specific hero. And that exact thing is one of the reasons I love this game. And I'm so hyped about this set. So whether or not they give me an assassin in this set or they get an assassin in another set, they can fit it in really lore-wise anywhere. But, I mean, if they're going to put it in, they're going to do an assassin. You might as well put it in where someone's having an uprising.
Yeah, well, that's not you're not wrong there. And I mean, I think another one that people were talking about was something along the lines of something like necromancer. I believe that is something that people have kind of. I don't know. Is that in the lore book? Because I know that James White has said, "Hey, like
Yes.
the stuff's in the lore book, so there's no secrets to a degree that you know kind of what's coming along because the classifications and the classes are in the lore book. And what does a necromancer do? Raises the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, uprising,
Oh,
raising the
okay. I
dead.
see where you go.
Now,
I see where you're
I'm
going with this. I
look,
like that.
I'm dude. This isn't like one of those "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" memes of Charlie Day kind of connecting dots and going all spooky crazy. I mean, it's not like completely out of left field. I didn't connect dots from like two different dimensions. Like it's just they're right next to each other.
Yep.
But
That's a
that's
good
an
point.
idea.
I could see necromancer, but to me it doesn't. Well, okay. Are we gonna go into? Do we have time to go into lore? Do we have time to
Um,
do this? Because I can turn off the commentator hat and put the geek hat on. I wish I had
oh,
hats. I do.
You have a hat. I was gonna say, get it.
Can
You
I
got
reach
your
it?
three-corner hat. Yeah, absolutely. Go get it. We got time because I'm getting information directly from space that the tournament is not ready to go. The top eight is not ready to go. Like I said, when the tournament is ready to go, ladies and gentlemen, you will see the feed as you see it right here. Unfortunately, right now they're still in. They're in. What's the term? They're in break mode. But as you can, oh my goodness
It's
gracious me.
1:22 a.m. where I am, and I'm putting on the lore hat. Okay, so lore time. Within the storyline of Kano, if you want to go check this out, it's actually not in the lore book. This is on the website. So Kano discovers after after the young Kano storyline, he discovers that there's this upper echelon wizard that is, escorting him to this location within like the overall like I think it's a temple or like the palace, right? And he's escorting him through these hallways into this place he's never been to. Kano has, and he's starting to get this bad feeling that this he's being led into what is essentially like a trap, and in doing so, he casts a spell directed at this person who is a well-respected member of the noble class. And in doing that, I think he severed his connection to the Aether. Something happens to this person who he's known for a while, a long time, and he immediately becomes pale, shriveled, this strange creature that lurches out and attacks Kano, and then Kano, customarily kills him, right? Burdens him or something like that. And Kano is pulled in front of this tribunal of wizards, asks about, they ask him about what happened, why he killed this guy, because this guy is well respected. And Kano goes on to say, well, actually, I killed him in self-defense because he became some horrible, creepy, gray beast. And I did it. And they start arguing amongst themselves because they're like, oh, someone has taken his form and has been masquerading as him this whole time. And they start like arguing, who could it be? Could there be more? And then Kano realizes, this probably happened because I severed his connection to the Aether, which is how they control magic in Volcor. So he does that in the room, and like half of the people in the room all become that creature and start attacking the other half of the wizards. And like everyone's like, death, 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 death. All of this to say that there is some very terrifyingly cool things going on that Kano has to go and basically is tasked with figuring out what is going on, why the Aether is unstable, and who in the world are all of these creatures. And it's definitely an interesting time to be Kano and to be in the realm of Volcor. And I honestly forgot why I was telling that story, so there you go.
You
That's
got the
what's
hat
happening.
on, man. Like I have a storytelling hat as well. I just don't have a story to tell, so like I'm not gonna jam it out. But yeah, the lore hat, it came on, and I mean it's a fascinating element. This is the beautiful part about the game as well that a lot of people kind of maybe overlook is that there is this deep rooted lore that all these characters are being pulled from, and this lore, this world building that's occurring is, you know, it like we're kind of along the journey as it's coming, right? Like we're playing with the pieces within this grand scheme and within the sandbox. We're part of it, but like it's just fascinating to know that there's a backstory to it. There's an origin and a direction and a motive to all the characters and what they're doing. There's relationships between them and you know, victories and triumphs and trials, etc. So
and someone in chat over here mentioned it's very similar to, you know, an old game, and it's a game I've talked about. I never got to play this game because when this was really happening was like, I think early 2000s, late 90s, something like that. And that's Legend of the Five Rings, with the way that they set up their storyline and the way that they ran tournaments and the way that the results of said tournaments factored into the story and how it played out, which I personally think is absolutely fantastic and a great way to build that community even more. Because if you know that, oh, if I go to this tournament, this kind of higher level tournament, and I win, well, something with the character that I win with is going to happen in the storyline, and that could affect things as they go. Now, they took that to like the infinite degree, from what I can tell, in Legend of the Five Rings, where they literally like printed cards with that storyline change. I don't know what that would look like for a worldwide game like Flesh and Blood, but if they did it back then, maybe it's doable back here, like now. Either way, hey, if you're in chat and you could tell me why I told that story, go back, run it back, because now I want to know how I can connect it back to the beginning, because I feel very passionately about the lore in this game.
It's possible that we were talking about what was coming in Uprising, and I mentioned necromancy, and then you talked about...
Okay, thank you. Goodness gracious. Okay, so necromancy.
How Kano pulled a Bilbo and went on this magical journey.
So the fundamental question of whether they can fit necromancer in this set is what's happening in that story somehow necromancy, or is this some, like, I don't know, secret society that is infiltrating, or is this some like you know, set of beings from a place like Erathiel, another sort of realm, that are trying to, you know, infiltrate, subvert the ruling class? We don't know. Hey, this just in: 6 Starvos, 1
I just got it.
1 Visceri.
Which is incredibly fascinating, given that there were so many prisms and so many people were high on prism in this tournament. And I feel like this just is the tail of the tape for prism in this tournament season, because every calling, every battle hardened that has occurred since Starvo has been this talk up, this pumping of the tires on prism, but has never converted and not even appearing in the top 8 right now. 6 Starvos, 1 Visceri, 1 Chain. That is your top 8 in Taiwan. So you're going to...
Shout out to Fable Hunters in chat for posting that in chat, and I'm not sure where you pulled that up, but I know they posted it in
I got
there,
the deck lists, baby.
Oh,
I got
let's
the deck
go.
lists.
Okay, we could talk about it.
So the deck lists are in, and I mean, ultimately right now, all I'm doing is I'm basically just you know, browsing through. They're fairly similar for the most part in terms of, you know, the main squeezes. You know, you've got the blue heavy, the red, you know, the red earth cards, the major heavy hitters in terms of what's coming through, and but ultimately it's a fairly similar and you know, a familiar lineup. But there's a Chain lurking around, and we've seen what Chain can do. I believe it was Cody Williams at the Calling in Indianapolis made short work of many people out there in the field who were kind of just maybe leaning on the fact that they could just bully Chain, and Chain was able to just outpace most of those who are out there trying to race it. And it turned out that Michael Hamilton took a different approach. Michael Hamilton took a slower, grindier fatigue approach and managed to beat Cody twice. So there you have it. I mean, Cody Williams on Chain showed the world, I mean, not necessarily him specifically, but it was just another demonstration of what Chain can do. And here's a Chain in the top 8, which doesn't surprise me. It honestly doesn't surprise me, because I feel like a good Chain player can still take a tournament.
I agree with that. Wholeheartedly,
But
I totally agree
the
with that.
problem is that chain is not the same chain it used to be. And I'm not saying this from the regards of like it's easy to pilot and now it's difficult, because it was never necessarily easy to pilot. But there was a lot more outs when you're peeling off the top with those soul
Yeah.
shackles, and now crafting turns are a little bit different.
Yeah.
It looks like we're almost ready to go to top 8
Yeah,
Armada,
it
as
does.
the casters are locked and loaded. But there you have it. So surprises in terms of the top 8 here: 6 Starvos, 1 Vis, 1 Chain.
Not terribly, outside of the fact that we see no Prism, but as you mentioned, and you're very correct in that assessment, the idea that Prism didn't make this cut is not new to this tournament, and it's going to be interesting to see if something happens with regards to the meta, if Prism rises in popularity, falls off completely. But this definitely speaks to, again, it's just another sort of notch on that, I guess, totem pole to show where these heroes really fall. Because if you're not converting, then is there something fundamentally wrong with that matchup, with that hero, with the deck construction? Is there a fundamental flaw in the assessment, or is there just not enough power or consistency within that list that so many people are running, that sort of just blue heavy aura list,
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And Luda saying, "Hey, Fino, like, what about Fino Black? Fino Black had an incredible showing at the calling, a tremendous showing. But ultimately, I think that the tail of the tape is more so that there was more stock put into Prism as being a viable answer or solution to Starvo. However, I think the original assessment was that Prism was favored, that Prism was like a 60-40 against Starvo. And, if you can just kind of withstand it early. As we're running into the game right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the top. Yeah, heck yeah, we are. It's top 8 of the Calling in Taiwan. My name is Flank. I'm joined by Armada. And just want to sort of complete that thought real quick. That what the initial assessment of a 60-40 favor, or even a 55-45 for Prism, I think was not the case. I think at best it was still a 50-50. Yeah. So, maybe there was a little bit too much stock where that was essentially erased by Starvo players making it happen. But here we go. It's time to play.
And looking like we have a nice little Starvo versus the 1 Vis that cut in to the top 8. Starting things off, drawing things up. Let's see how this goes on turn number 0. I guess electing to go first, or just ending up losing the die roll and then being told to go first is the Viscerai player.
So looking at the equipment here, again, standard procedure, I think, for both players. Obviously, lots of blocking capabilities there on the Viscerai side. Skullcap, Scaletta, the Grasp, and starting it out pretty decently. Going to start just, I guess, poking away with Vexing Malice with a little bit of a chaser on top, two Arcane with that 1 damage.
Yeah, playing Mordred Tide into Vexing is a really fun little starting play. It's one of those interesting moments too, where if you start with Vis, like you actively are incentivized to just make rune chants and not do anything. But in Starvo, there's this, into Starvo, there's this general belief, like an overarching game plan, that you do want to try and remove cards from hand and make it a little more difficult for them to hit the consistent Starvo trigger. And so when you're putting this, that is a very large D20 showing the damage that is coming across, which we can all appreciate on stream.
We definitely appreciate this big time. And yeah, Sink Below is being pitched here to go ahead and, I guess, absorb some of that arcane damage, if I'm not mistaken, as it seems like that, the Sink was, there was 2 arcane being presented, so 1 should trickle through here.
And as they play out, there's a clear block and then a pass overall. No extra play there. There's no go again on that, so you'd have to creepers and follow that up with something afterwards in order to get a go again. But I guess in that scenario, you're pretty content to just make a few rune chants off of perhaps a suboptimal Mordred Tide turn,
This is a tough turn here
Oof.
for Yenwei. I mean, Yenwei has to pitch a lot of very powerful cards. There's a Crippling Crush and Oakenold. Just to get that Spinal Crush through, there's no fuse here, but it's a 9, stopping any go again effects on a Crush. A Crush obviously being if 4 or more damage goes through. No Dominate, no go again, but Steve, look at the cards that were pitched away. A Crippling Crush and an Oakenold. These are cards that you wish that you can hang tight with and maybe hold on to Arsenal perhaps so you can, couple it up with a fuse later on. That was a pretty clunky way to start your offensive turn.
It's not the best, but you can also make the argument that maybe you're trying to play for a second cycle. Maybe you think you can get there if your opponent's just going to like kind of tit for tat you overall. He's going to just be content to straight up pass here, drawing up, playing what is probably a more defensive style. And that allows a nice little, unfortunately, it allows just a very powerful little Crippling Crush, dominated go again. Probably no resources floating here, but just a casual 13 dominate.
Yeah, and on the Crush effect here, you're going to be basically taxing your opponent an additional 2 cards, which is going to be tough. That's where these cards are so important, because it's not necessarily about doing damage as Starvo, as the vanilla 9 of hitting a fused Autumn's Touch, let's say, is not as challenging to digest as a Crippling Crush or an Oakenold. Those on-hit effects that really just tax your hand, that peel away cards that for that OTK strategy that Viserai might be looking to employ, you cannot, you need to be able to play 3 or 4 card hands to really generate that kind of rune chant stack so that you're able to come through. But that is a big time unmovable and a reduce out of the arsenal as well.
And this is what I've noticed overall about the Viserai lists that we've seen on stream for the past 2 days, is that they are far more defensive minded. They're playing unmovables, like red unmovables. They're playing reduced to rune chants. They're definitely more oriented towards the OTK strategy straight up, which means that they are okay seeing something like a Crippling Crush and blocking from hand with like a defense reaction, and then blocking from arsenal with a defense reaction, and then maybe on their turn playing a single rune chant generator, or just content to say, pass arsenal another defense reaction and try to just make it happen again. It feels very much like old school Viserai trying to push for that OTK turn, like way back in the day with like Crucible of War.
I believe that's a Starvo fuse in hand with Oakenold, if possible here. I think it looks like everything's going well here. This is probably just going to be, again, building up a few things. He's going, actually, it's the OTK plan is not what's on the docket here, it seems.
Yeah, here he's choosing to try to return volley, try to, push some life totals down. It's actually interesting taking this line of sort of trading damage, trying to get cards out of hand, is what we didn't see happen in the final game of Swiss, where the Viserai player tried to just defense react from arsenal and from hand to stop all these, and the Starvo player just hit Oakenold fused into Oakenold fused into Crippling Crush fused into Oakenold fused and blew the game up. So maybe this is a strategy after watching a game like that, or hearing about a game like that, of like, maybe we just need to rip cards from hand and try to keep parity as far as life totals are concerned.
Yeah, in this case, Yenwei, with the cards that he's holding right now, it's like, yeah, send me the bill, no problem, because watch this. It's going to be slam it down, fuse the Starvo. He's already saying, he's like, check this out. All right, I'm going to show you 2 cards. That's a beautiful cold foil pulse, if you've ever seen one. That's the full effect right there. And now we're going to pitch that lightning and come in with a fused Oakenold. That Pulse of Eisenloft is basically your bread and butter for Starvo.
Yeah, and that is a huge play. It's literally the play that makes this deck, right? This is the reason, one of the 2 perhaps, one of the 2 or 3 reasons that this deck is just so powerful, so good at what it does. It's being able to just play out a fused Oakenold and say your hand is gone.
Well, that's it. And this is the thing, when you're talking about trading volleys, the volley that Yenwei absorbed, the damage that he took, the 7 points of damage, it means nothing because it's just points. It's a resource like anything else, like your pitch, like anything. Your life total can go down to 1, and that means that as long as you got 1, you've got a hand to play, you got a chance. And in this case, for Ming Chen, this volley, this return fire has so much more detriment because of the on-hit effect.
Yeah, I'm choosing to keep the pulse in hand. Probably wants to set up another big turn, being able to basically just fuse the or Starvo trigger on the next turn, knowing that you've just crippled the hand of your opponent, and so that you can just be content not to push for 4 extra damage, but to just show the Starvo trigger and then just jam something else down. Because if you just, draw into another crazy, crazy big power card, then you just have the chance to run away with the game. Here it's just an evergreen from Arsenal.
This is where those regional metas that we began the broadcast talking about is so comes into play, because if the common logic and the climate of where you're playing suggests that OTK is not the flavor of the day, it's not the strategy that people are taking, that's where a Starvo player will put something like a Sink Below in their deck. Because where I'm from, in my neck of the woods, this common strategy, the common logic to beating Starvo as Viserai has always been OTK. So cards like Sink Below never really got they got no value. They were just dead red cards because I was never getting attacked. So in this case, this is definitely a call of the local meta. And if for some who might see that and say that's unorthodox, well, it's unorthodox to you perhaps in your own region, but for Yenwei reading the runes of where he's at, that's what he's assuming. And now this is what we're seeing as Ming Chen here on Viserai is playing that game of slapsies back and forth.
He just full took everything that was thrown at him, blocking with no cards from hand or arsenal, so that he could play out a turn. Looks like he's going to play the Aura down, of which the name fleetingly leaves my mind at 1:42 a.m. But that's okay, because I could always look it up later. Or someone awesome in chat can mention the name of the card. Oh, he's playing out Sonata. So keeping the entirety of his hand so that he can try to set up a Sonata turn, or at least just some overarching value that, again, tries to pull cards from hand. He's going to hit Sonata, and unfortunately only hit 1 non-attack action, so he can select 1 attack action and send 1 arcane damage over to his opponent.
Still has another pulse in hand as well, as I believe that's Blizzard. I think that's in there as well.
He's kept both. Well, he's kept the pulse of Volthaven in hand for the past 2 turns. He drew into that second pulse as well, and does have a Blizzard, so he's certainly has another fuse set up, and I guess he could use it on that break ground if he chooses to, or whatever he has in Arsenal. He's going to Crown of Seeds instead, but he's looking at a Dread Triptych coming at him, which could create some rune chance, depending on if it hits.
Yeah, the Dread Triptych has so many lines of text there, Steve. Just walk us through a little bit about what that nastiness can really, account for.
Sure.
If it fires on all cylinders.
Right. If it does all of its things, it can create 3 rune chance, and that's before you look at anything like Mordretide or Viserai. He's instead, look, this is interesting. He's going to play out his Read the Runes red from hand, arsenal a card, and then choose to end the turn. Thank you everyone in chat that shouted out that is Rune Blood Incantation. I should have gone with my gut, but then for some reason I almost said Blood Spill Invocation, which is the other card from Arcane Rising that no one plays, sadly, because it's got cool art. He's going to come down with Starvo trigger here and just drop the break ground that he had from hand for a measly 7.
But it's dominated, and it goes again, Steven, and that's the beautiful part, is that the dominated, it's not just that it's 7. 7 is one of those break points, obviously, multiples of 3 plus 1 are always nasty, nasty little bits to block. But it's dominated, so you're guaranteed to, at least punch through for a little bit here. It seems like this has been Yenwei's game the whole way, as Ming Chen has opted to come through here to try to see if they can trade blows back and forth. But, even as this game began, with Yenwei pitching a Crippling Crush and an Okanold, he's followed up with a fused Crippling Crush with a double fused Okanold, and just has continuously gone to town here. Not to mention, there's still the Stalagmite is still fully charged. You've got all of your blocking with your Crater Fist. If necessary, you are in real good cruise control here for Yenwei.
Yes, this is in commanding lead, and you're looking at the life totals as well, and you go, this is a big stretch, and you're going to have to put something pretty big together if you are sitting on the Viserai side of the table. Do keep in mind, though, that you can block with all of your equipment still. All that equipment block is still set up. So if you can generate some rune chance and survive some damage, you might be able to pull something out. But it looks like, unfortunately, that you may be having to face down against a crippling crush, perhaps fused over the next couple of turns, or I should say Starvo fused. And it does appear that there's a big attack coming across just for the 9. No dominate, I would imagine, because he is not indicating that it's coming for 11. But you did force a card out of your opponent's hand prior to this by playing the beautiful foil Polar Blast.
I think it's a Winter's Bite.
Oh, Winter's Bite, excuse me, yes.
And that's not a bad block here. Again, that's going to block 6, and that's going to negate the crush effect of that Spinal Crush, meaning that there's the go-agains can happen. And you can see here by just going ahead and tossing out all that equipment that he's valuing his hand, but more so, this is also potentially an indicator that Skeleton, that Bloodsheath Skeleton can be, it's now online. Typically, you want to get the 2-point block before you pop it. Is 8 rune chance enough to get things going? I think that's a Sonata that's in his arsenal, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, playing down a Become the Arknight. If you can somehow string together Become the Arknight, Mordred tied into some dirty little Sonata stuff that could maybe steal you a bunch of points of damage, force cards out of the hand, you might be able to swing some things. And that is definitely a line of play. This is one of those cards that I absolutely love, simply because there's so many different decision points that can reward you for taking the specific line. Become the Arknight, he chooses to discard the Dread Triptych so that he can go and get a Mordred Tide, and I would imagine that he's going to follow up playing the non-attack action card that he started with by playing Mordred Tide and generating a Rune Chant, and then just jam down a bunch more stuff that can do bad stuff for your opponent.
Oh, here it comes, baby. Here it comes. I just noticed that my logo is unfortunately blocking this young man's face here. So this was not how it was supposed to be. So I'm just going to make a little bit of an adjustment here.
And
I did not mean to do that.
Sonata play comes down as you're moving the logo. The perfect timing.
I was going to say, I don't know if you could see it, but we're going to, we're just going to get rid of it altogether. I don't need that kind of vanity. It's the real heroes are on the board. I apologize that I didn't even know that was there. I'm so sorry. But I mean, there's that big turn that we're talking about. There's a complete just pocket full of rune chance.
Let's see how the reveal goes. Reveal for 8. And it's fairly even, which is solid. So he's going to get 3 attack actions, send over 3 arcane damage, banish the Sonata, and then be able to push some of this damage. Looks like he has a Rune Flash available to him. I can't quite make out the other 2 cards. Maybe you can. Perhaps a Spellblade Assault as well. Not sure what colors we see. Depending on the resources that he can generate, he can definitely push some damage here.
Well, this is usually how this goes. The Starvo versus Viserai matchup typically looks very one-sided until the Viserai gets those pieces ready to go. It's just kind of building that house of cards and then eventually just toppling it over onto your opponent. So this is that turn. So that 29-10 is going to evaporate very, very... It's going to equalize. As I have been, strapped into a match where I was up 40-1 as Starvo versus Viserai, and that game ended 1-0. So keep in mind that anything could happen, but this is the swing back. This is that clap back that Ming Chen is taking here.
And this is exactly what you have to play for if you are the Viserai player, because there is no other way besides building up a turn like this, finding a Become the Arknight, chaining it with something like a Mordred Tide so you're generating double rune chance. Playing out a Sonata off of the back of a Skeleton. This is the only real way you cut into a deficit like this, and he's executing it as you see. And of course, the block here with the Stalagmite will generate a Frostbite and make it a little bit more difficult to pay for things. But of course, he can dance around that with the help of Rune Flash.
I was gonna say, I think there's just some trigger timing regarding the Frostbite perhaps there, but take a look at that. There's 5 more rune chants coming through, and the scores now as Yenwei on Starvo at 16 to Ming Chen's 10. This is a completely different story than merely 5 minutes ago when it was a landslide as it seemed here. But if you look at this absolute just this laundry list of cards that have been accumulating on the board. This is all from one turn, and it's impressive to say the least. But this is the power of what Viserai can do. Eventually, you feel like you're in this comfortable spot until Viserai eventually just explodes on you, and that's precisely what's going on right now.
Yeah, and this is a turn where the Starvo player, Yenwei, really wants to keep his hand. You can see there's an Okanold in there. Probably not a fuse target from what it looks like. It looks like there's a beautiful alt art Channel Lake Frigid plus a couple of ice cards and like a Glacial in hand. So you're not fusing here, but you want to have tempo, but you can't die. Now, in this scenario, you're probably not being like presented lethal, so you may just be able to take down to as low as you can. And if you are playing as Viserai, then you're thinking, I just need to do something to rip cards out of hand so that I don't have to face down a possible fuse. Now, of course, he doesn't know if there's, the fuse pieces, so you just do whatever you can to actually take cards from hand in awkward, presentations of damage.
This could just be, like you said, absorb as much as possible. That's a pretty decent way to do it. Again, absorbing a lot of the rune chants coming in. Now, this is the super value combo meal. It's 2 physical plus 2 rune chants plus 2 arcane. So you're getting everything here. As one of those representations there is actually 2 arcane. I think they're switching that up here just so there's no confusion. Yeah, there it is. So 2 physical, 2 arcane plus 2 rune chants. That's 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Movie reference. If anyone gets it in chat, you're my favorite person. It's a lot of damage, though. Wouldn't you agree, Flake?
I completely agree. And I believe that right now, given the fact that you're mentioning, in terms of valuing the cards, there was no fusion there. So I think that's part of it, especially if you were able to fuse with the Okanold. Yenwei's approach here would have been, am I dead? If I'm not, I'm holding the hand and I'm going ham, because I don't think that Ming Chen would have been able to catch up here. But I believe at this point, what he's looking to do here is merely swing hammer and pocket that Okanold and hope that the drawback is pretty decent.
Yeah, both players, I think, playing fantastically and playing towards those lines that you're mentioning. I think you're 100% correct. As they clean up that massive turn, as you sometimes see, Viserai have those crazy, crazy turns.
So 1 counter on the Stalagmite, and that Stalagmite is going to be incredibly vital. So there it is. Yeah, we're going to pitch that beautiful, beautiful alternate art Channel Lake Frigid. I have one of those. I didn't even know that it came in alternate art until I almost traded it to someone, and someone said, "Oh, it's the alternate art." I said, "Okay, trades off." I wasn't aware. But there it is. So again, the Okanold is now in the pocket, which means that if that draw is beautiful, but that's 3 lightning cards in hand. That is not, and you could see a little bit of that frustration as he kind of just with his hand gestured, like, what do I have to do here? What do I have to do?
And we see a Rattlebones in hand for Ming Chen, possibly considering playing. He's going to check his graveyard as well. There's a ton of lines with Viserai. Viserai is very complex in nature as far as some of these cards that can go and tutor cards out of the deck or pull cards from graveyard, can be played at instant speed if you deal arcane damage first. All of these things that you have to consider and weigh your options for and what your hand can do at any given moment, especially because you can like spellbound creepers things at different times depending on your instant speed plays. All of these things lead to a scary moment here for Yenwei. If you're looking at this going, okay, if he's looking at his graveyard, is he just looking to count like how many Mordreds he has left? Or is he looking because he has a Rattlebones that he's going to pull something out of, and do I have to now account for that? And there's, depending on the rest of the composition of his hand, there's a variety of things that you can actually go and search out in this moment, which is very scary.
What's tough here also is that, like, Yenwei is just assessing the situation and opting to block out, pocket the Okanold in the hopes that he'll draw into that Starvo and then basically kind of end the game. But drawing into 3 lightning cards, and honestly, when it comes down to it, lightning is typically your weakest element as Starvo. It's not the most powerful for attacking, as something like an Autumn's Touch would do, like a red. You could pitch it for 7. At least it's a decent attack in itself. I don't even think he's holding on to an Ice Card to really get any value out of that hammer. So this is going to be another blockout turn, I'm assuming, for Yenwei, and hopefully he just draws into something better. But this is not bad coming in. As you mentioned, Rattle Bones into a Swarming Gloomveil for 4 and go again with a Rune Chant Chaser on top.
Yeah, floating a resource with a card. I think it's at least 1 card in hand, which means that if he can, at instant speed, do some tricky stuff and then chain this together into... I think with 1 card in hand, he probably can't do too many things, but with the idea being that if I can create 3 Rune Chants and get this to hit, then I can push arcane damage over the top that you can't stop. And that is a threat that may be more paper in nature than, real and actual that you have to consider. But it's one that you're making your opponent do the math on. And if they do it wrong after a long 2 days of playing, you may get an extra advantage over the course of this game.
So our R&B cover band, our R&B hip hop cover band, which is only going to cover Naughty by Nature songs, we're going to be called Paper by Nature. I think that's are going to be our like CCG kind of little project.
What, you and me?
Musical project. Well, I figured, I mean, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, it's all 5 dudes, right? So we need 3 other people involved. We'll figure it out. But
we can come up with 3 people. There's probably like 3 people in both of our chats combined.
I think so.
There's at least 3 people, right, in chat.
I mean, maybe in yours. No, I got some great people in here as well. Definitely some awesome people. I want to give a shout out to I Am Bubbles and John, as well as Obama Snow. Great people here. You guys are awesome.
Obama Snow. There's a Pokemon in chat? That's
Obama
amazing.
Snow? I don't know if is that a Pokemon? I'm not entirely sure. I mean,
correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I'm pretty sure that is. Pushing the 2 and 2 with the Rosetta here, which again pushing some extra arcane damage, making it really uncomfortable because you're stripping cards from hand. You don't know. We can see to a certain degree what's in the Starvo player's hand, but anytime you can pull cards out of their hand and make them pitch or block, you're keeping that, especially when you saw them pitch away both of the pulses early, you're keeping that chance of just getting blown out by dominated attacks way down.
So again, a blink in hand is nothing really. I mean, that's just pitch fodder right now. If you got to get rid of some of that that arcane damage, there's nothing in the arsenal because that there was an early use, frankly, of that Crown of Seeds. So this 2 and 2 is going to at least connect for 1, as there's going to be 1 arcane that's going to be able to trickle through. You can block it again with the Null Rune Boots. But the question here is, I think it's just a matter of Yenwei knows that his hand is kind of little lackluster. So it's a matter of just trying to piece together, can I block out but still manage to, let's say, swing hammer or swing with something and keep a card in arsenal, because I believe that he's in this position now at 7 life where being able to consistently have a Crown of Seeds ability on defense is going to be clutch.
And here we have an Awakening play. He's taking damage so that he can then fuse an Awakening and create some seismics. Oh, and it's going to be a big seismic creation.
That's going to be, that's 10 seismics.
Yeah. Going to be the way that you kind of sneak back in that game as, again, you're having to just throw cards. You're having to block. Going to go in and consider what you grab here. Again, you have 10 seismics, and now you have a little bit of room to play with as you go back through the deck. My chat just wanted to let everybody know that yes, Obama Snow is a Pokemon, and yes, its Sev would like to join our R&B band. So put him down.
Awesome. I'm Justin Timberlake. That's already been called. So I'm the Beyonce. If anyone's asking, you could be Kelly Rowland. That's a whole other group.
Absolute clutch play here to have this Awakening. It's the clutch card, I should say it that way, because it's the play that you want to make, of course, where you take enough damage where you generate some mass amounts of seismics because you already had the fuse in hand, and then he chooses to pull a Crippling Crush here, which he can, I would imagine, set up a fuse for. I can't remember the other cards in hand, but either way, he's going to be able to play down a Crippling on top of all this.
Well, there's a Blink in hand and there's an Earth card in hand, so it's not really.
There's not a third one then.
there's no, there's nothing else going on here, but at the very least, you're
Yep.
getting a crippling crush in a situation where, I don't think that Ming Chen can actually. He's gonna have to commit cards here. What does he have in hand here that can block? You got the birthday cake in there. Trying to figure out what else is just floating around. I believe there's another Sonata, but 11 coming through. Again, it's not it's not a pure on hit. It's a crush effect, meaning it's got to do 4 or more damage. But 11 is quite the big piece of pie that you've got to take a bite out of here in order to make sure that you're not getting your hand taxed. But in order to do that, you got to give cards away. So this might just be buying the entire hand here, perhaps. As if you look, there's really no other blocking from the equipment available, as that Arcanite Skullcap is offline. Yenwei
yes.
has, Yenwei is at the lower life total here.
Yeah, you can consider throwing like creepers, but you don't really need to based on the block distribution of your hand. Oh, and he comes in with the blink, allowing him to gain the action point, and then I would imagine just jam that hammer across.
Now I'm wondering if that is, I mean, it's not an ice hammer, but I don't think it really matters at this point. But is that 4 vanilla damage worth the arsenal? In my opinion, as you've basically already bought the hand out here, is that worth it? I mean, obviously you're gonna, it's you play the blink and you pitch and go. So you're I guess so in the same regard that you're holding on to extra. It's tough. It's a tough assessment here.
I think that's a solid point or a solid question to ask. But if you are buying the hand, then you're having yourself most likely a second turn, because they have an arsenal plus 1 card. And if you steal that 1 card with this 4 attack hammer, then they have an arsenal, right? Which is very unlikely that they play anything out there that's going to threaten lethal. So by pushing this damage, you're pushing vanilla damage, and you're not really worried about Crown of Seedsing for some extra block. If you don't buy it, then maybe you're opening yourself up to some weird fringe lines that could push weird arcane damage, like a Sonata. I don't know. And there's a Sonata. He Sonatas for nothing and ends up hitting the Sonata, grabbing himself a little Swarming Gloom Veil, sending 1 arcane damage.
It is 1 arcane damage that comes through. He could potentially block it, but it's going to cost him a card. He's got a Sink Below ready to go to block out that Swarming Gloom Veil if necessary, as there's really no follow-up, I don't think, right? Because that's the only card he's got left in hand, if I'm not mistaken. There's an arsenal still to be
plus
had.
The card, that's right. And it is a 0 cost, which is beneficial to what you actually grab there if you want to actually play that card, or maybe you wanted the resources, so grabbing a red is unfortunate. It looks like he's just mauve skies down.
There goes another, and he's just coming through here. And I mean, it's 4 plus 1 chaser here, but that can be just very easily answered. You can see it right away. It's like, yeah, all right, jam it through. I'll just take the. I believe he just took the 1.
Yep.
Yep. So
which is very smart, actually, to take the 1 here, because that puts your life total at equal, turning off the skull cap as well. And this is one of those end game things that if you don't practice a little bit, or just get yourself exposed to, of just managing skull cap block capability at the end of the game, is absolutely huge in these high level games. And we've seen it time and time again, some player being able to take just enough damage to turn off someone else's skull cap and come across. It's not quite the same in this matchup, but it still matters, because you're presenting some amount of lethal to your opponent here in this moment.
And this is a brilliant turn right here, pitching the Yellow Pulse, dropping down a Channel Lake Frigid, following up with another channel pitched in order to swing hammer. So you're already getting taxed if you want to come in with a D-React, as the Channel Lake Frigid is going to, basically act as a consistent frostbite effect. And now you have to also contend with another hammer. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 reduced rune chants have been played. I could be wrong.
It looks like there's 1 in hand currently, and that's a fairly uncomfortable feeling, because now you have to pay 1 for it, I should say, because you do have a rune chant, which means it's reduced by that. But you don't have more than 1 rune chant, so you do have to pay for it because of Channel Lake Frigid, which is an awkward thing.
So just the old-fashioned block, dropping some cards there to go ahead and block it through. 1 flow counter on the Channel Lake Frigid, and very adeptly mentioned here in chat was the fact that those Sink Belows have come in incredibly clutch. What was initially pegged as kind of like an unorthodox choice in this particular matchup, has that those cards have come in pretty clutch. Those are typically tough cards to draw as Starvo, as they don't fuse, they don't pitch for 3. They're really only defensive. But in this case, the call was made to have those in the list, and they have come through quite fruitfully.
Yeah, and if you're expecting to see, a lot of Rune Blades in general in the meta, playing 4 block defense reactions are generally pretty solid, because Rune Blade fundamentally wants to push breakpoints, and split damage. A lot of those cards that they push out there push for 4 damage and have go again and try to go wide. It's that breakpoint that you want to attack, and this is the reason that you see those, Sync Belows and perhaps Fate for Scenes and other decks put in work.
I've been in the situation here where Yenwei's sitting, where you have the game in your grasp and you're like, just get me that fuse. Just get me that fuse and it's over. Just get me that fuse and it's over. And it seems to be that he's just, it's like you had the game almost in the bag about 4 or 5 turns ago where you drew the 3 lightning cards. I have sat in that particular situation and just stewed and been like, man, okay, we still got some work to do. It's not just a free pass to victory here, as the cards that he's drawn now, again, I don't want to say seem clunky, as they're pretty potent, but the problem is just stringing together multiple turns. I think the only thing that you can really hope for here, I didn't really get a view, but if there's a blink and another ice card, you can blink and then swing hammer, and that might be somewhat good enough. There's the other reduced to rune chant that you're talking about.
This was the one that he arsenaled on the last turn. And again, he does have to pay for this reduced to rune chant. Promo reduced to rune chant, because it is that full, what is that? Extended art. That's the correct term for it. He's going to block 4 there, and I would imagine take down. Did he take down to 1 here? Was that, or was that a blue evergreen? I couldn't quite make out what that was. Nevertheless.
No. That was 7 that went through, blocked it, going down to 1.
Took down to 1. And this does clear the Channel Lake Frigid, so perhaps he just says, I'm going to take down to 1 because I have a hand. And that's exactly what we see here. Man, he's going to push some Swarming Gloomveil action, creating 2 on the back end.
Very important here, keep in mind, is that there's a go again on the Swarming Gloomveil, but there's still a Stalagmite. So depending on what the card is in hand, if it's a red card in hand, the Stalagmite creating the Frostbite will turn off any ability for you to swing with that Rosetta. So there is a potential thought process here where if Yenwei is putting Ming Chen on a red card, blocking Stalagmites shuts off any of the additional swing. So we'll see if that's what he's assuming here. I did not see what the other card Ming Chen is holding on to, but that's a consideration here.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how he chooses to block, or, approach this portion, because he does have to block here. He's basically just forced. I think he takes 1 rune chant, dropping him to 3, does full block the 4. I think that's the right play, just straight up. At this point in the game, obviously, it's a very basic thing. Gives him the Frostbite and says, well, what are you going to do from this point? And he's going to pitch a Mavrian Skies and generate some... Did he generate a rune? No, he's just pitching to pop that out there, yeah. Throwing out the Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2. Let's see how he chooses to pitch and block this remaining arcane damage. 2, and 2 coming across. Gonna have to get rid of some stuff here.
Oh, no, definitely. This is going to be one of those junctures where creative accounting is going to be important. Now, the beautiful part about this Winter's Wail is that, frankly, you can pressure decently with just 1 blue ice card in your hand, or any blue, frankly. Swinging for 4, again, on that breakpoint can be dangerous, especially when your opponent is at 1. At this rate, it doesn't matter if it's ice or not, because on-hit effects is not just a Frostbite, it's a trip to the semifinals.
Yeah, I think if you want to take... or if you want to keep a card in your hand here, I think the only way that you can actually keep a card in your hand, though, from Yenwei's perspective, is to go to 1, which is horribly dangerous if you can't actually do anything. So he may, and I think he's probably just going to have to drop to 2 as well, which is very awkward, based on the Rosetta Thorn pushing to 2 arcane in a lump that you can't deal with. So no matter what, he's going to be taking damage, and you're just going to have to get rid of cards from hand, swing with like the hammer, hope that they brick into something, and try to wrestle control back. But you're gonna have to deal with arcane damage, and at this point in the game, you need your opponent to sort of brick to a certain degree with your hand so that, you know, their one life is being threatened in an awkward way. But
This is that really naughty math that you have to really parse out properly. As frankly, one misstep here, because going to one, that Rosetta coming in for 2 arcane, it's a package deal, and the arcane boots is only going to block one of them. You'll have to rely on your Crown of Seeds to absorb the second iteration, or the second sort of, you know, the second half of that 2 arcane damage.
that's correct.
Look, and as it stands here, you know, the benefit, however, of going to one is that you've basically, for the rest of the game, turned off the skull cap, as Ming Chen here does have one more durability on the skull cap. So there's still a block for 1 if necessary.
Yeah,
And
I
we'll
was
see.
incorrect in assuming that Seeds had blocked that first point of arcane coming from the earlier play, but because that arcane was, or sorry, because the Crown of Seeds was up, it allows him to keep a 2-card hand and jam down an attack, which is actually great for him if he can rip cards here. I can't quite make out which Autumn's Touch that is, though.
I'm trying to read as well. I feel like if it's just a blue, it may have been better just to come in with your Winter's Wail and pocket a card and allow your Crown of Seeds to be an option for the second one. But if
That's
this is a
fantastic
red,
point,
then I mean 7 over 4 is many more cards, especially if your opponent might be caught with 2 blocks in hand. It's completely possible. They are floating around in there. It makes it incredibly awkward. I mean, at this rate, I mean, anything that trickles through is tough. And it's not, you know, Yenwei's not playing with any combat tricks. There's no attack reactions floating around. It's purely just all muscle.
Yeah, it would be fantastic if we had that giant die right now so we could see which this is pushing for, because we can't quite make out the color. That being said, looking like he's, you know, feathering towards a 2-card block from hand, which can significantly hamper. Oh, and look, the giant die comes in for the MVP. It was a 5. It was a 5. Everyone get hyped. Giant die is back. But a 2-card block nonetheless, because of course, if you take any point of damage, you're dead. So, blocking 5 here, leaving yourself with 2 cards. How do you put together enough threats as far as split damage to put your opponent down completely? Is what Ming is trying to figure out.
My thought process in that case is you keep a blue, you create a rune chant with your grasp, and you swing Rosetta for 2 and 1.
Right.
And that might be awkward enough to create a situation where your opponent has to give you 2 cards.
Sure.
Right. And in this case, this is where I'm thinking that, I mean, to me, a 4 is as good as a 5. And I mean, you could maybe he's just, I don't know how many reduced to rune chants were left. Maybe there was one left that he decided that, but even then he'd have to pitch for it because there's no rune chants on the board. I still feel that pitching blue and maybe pocketing one of those 2 cards was probably a better move here. Just swinging with hammer, keeping the arsenal going.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, 5 over 4, obviously the 1 extra damage is the game if it manages to trickle through. So there's certainly, you know, a lot of logic in going through with that 1 extra push of damage and just, you know, saying that, okay, this might, you know, I don't want to say win you the game. Blocking 5 is perfectly feasible here, especially since you still have the skull cap. That might be what the thought process here is as well. It's just blocking with the skull cap, and the 5 is keeping into account the skull cap as well.
It does, yeah. If you're swinging 4, then you can do a single card block with the skull cap from hand, and you're just comfortable. Here, pushing the 5 means you can't really consider that skull cap block, and just dropping a card, which puts you on a 2-card hand, and or puts your opponent, I should say, on a 2-card hand, and then they have a lot more stuff to do. And look, he's going to pitch away the Become the Arc-Knight to make the rune chant, as you had talked through. And I think this is probably one of the only like big lines. Oh, he's going to push 4 and 1 with the meet and greet. 4 and 1 is asking for multiple cards. And looking at the hand for Yenwei, it looks like he's got a couple of options as far as attack actions are concerned, but a break ground and well, technically the Winter's Grasp blocks for 3, but the break ground blocks for 2. I think that's an evergreen that blocks for 2. And so this is actually an awkward spot to be in. That's an exposed to the elements as well, which is an instant that doesn't block at all. So he's in a little bit of an awkward hand position as well. Man, this game
Absolutely.
going back and forth, sort of balanced on that razor's edge like you see so many games of Flesh and Blood be.
Meet and greet again, coming in at a 4, that nasty break point. That's going to be a 2-card block if necessary. I mean, ultimately, unless Yenwei is comfortable, there is perhaps a situation where he wants to go to 1 and start pressuring if necessary. But
Yep.
again, without any fuses, it's incredibly difficult. So just gonna write it down. I'm gonna, going through, taking the 1 arcane damage, if I'm not mistaken here.
Yeah, and
It's 1 all.
this steals away the ability to block one last time with the Arcanite Skullcap. And again, it's that late game capability to just throw it out there and take the block, or to block arcane damage, is what we've seen in previous tournaments with balancing that Skullcap life total. In this case, it's just being able to block with like an advantageous scenario where you can block with 1 card plus the Skullcap. Now this is committing 2 cards every single turn from now till the end of the game, because you're at 1 and your opponent's at 1. You can throw that out there and say, give me 2 cards.
There's an unmovable in Ming Chen's hand, and ultimately, obviously, it's still 2 cards to block if necessary. But I think what occurs over here is that unmovable just gets pocketed every time. You just swing perhaps with your Rosetta and call it a day. But I think that right now Yenwei is incredibly happy that he was just able to go ahead and drop something in the arsenal. This is just 2, the old-fashioned way, the way Grandma used to do it.
This is a dangerous moment, because as far as Chen is concerned, this play right here, playing out, it feels so bad. I can't quite make out what the other card in his hand is, but he has pitched away the unmovable, which also, by the way, just doesn't feel necessarily super great in Arsenal, unless you are up against some fused stuff, which could possibly be the case, or just a big attack. This feels so bad, just pushing a 2 and giving your opponent like a 3-card hand plus an arsenal. A very horrible moment, and you're just hoping that
this is the second cycle too.
Yeah.
There's that pulse, and there's that crippling crush.
Well, I believe, didn't he shuffled off the Awakening, so they were all mixed up anyway, but these cards are still in circulation, as you're mentioning, and he's just going to jam down the Crippling Crush and say, well, you better have Arsenal to defense reaction. You pitched 1 away on your last turn. If you don't have 1 now, it's game. And we can imagine that he does, right?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's not a second unmovable in Arsenal. I mean, it would be nice for him to have it, but again, you need to have a blue in hand. That'll block 8 of the 11, and then you need another card to block the remainder 3. You're on the cusp here. Check out these life totals. It's 1-1. This is as close as you can get to, these games are insanely close. These Viserai versus Starvo matchups, it is an unmovable in there.
So he had a double unmovable hand, both of them reds as well, which is why it felt so bad. So he is going to play the unmovable down.
Oh no, it's an entirely red hand.
That does, I believe, full block it all, though, but it means that you don't have anything to return volley with. You're just going to say pass. You have no way to arsenal a defense reaction, and it literally comes down to what your opponent does.
So no ice either. There is a flash there, if I'm not mistaken, so there is a potential for a go again here. There it is. So 2 attacks coming through.
Flash into Evergreen pitching. Evergreen, probably a blue Evergreen, but we can't quite find out until the giant die comes to our rescue, drumming down.
It's a red
it's the
one.
7. I think this may just close it out, because following this up with just about anything is gonna do it. Pushing that 4 damage there, pitching away the last card, saying, give me your last card, pushing it over the top. For the win is Yenwei on Starvo, and the only Viserai making it into the top 8 cut is out in the quarterfinals. But oh my goodness, was that a fantastic game. Absolutely disgustingly good game. So many twists and turns back and forth as far as how that one played out. What are your overall impressions on how that worked and how that really kind of just came to a head at the end?
Well, there's what I've learned about playing against this matchup, and ProQuest season, you're going to face a lot of these these proven meta decks over and over and over again. I went through a few ProQuests this Prism, and I went through a few of them with Starvo. I had success with both. Ultimately, got a gold foil playing Starvo. Feels good. But on that trek, frankly, the Viserai matchups were always the most unnerving. And the reason why is because there was always this mentality that OTK was the way to take it down. That is definitely the sort of the avenue you have to take to contest with it. And on that trek, on that journey, as the Starvo player, you feel great because you're given a free ride. You're just going through, you're fusing, you're beating up on them, you're fusing, you're beating up on them, you're tossing in the Okanolds, you're tossing in the Crippling Crushes, you're going crazy. But eventually that it all comes to fruition where you're just staring down this 18 pile when as soon as they feel threatened, they're going to come at you. And that's where it gets dangerous. This matchup, however, was different because it wasn't the typical OTK. I mean, it got to a point where there was a fairly large, Sonata. I think it was like 8 or 9 rune chants off of a Sonata with the Skeleta. There was a pretty big turn that occurred. However, it's not the standard procedure. And this goes to the fact that what we discussed earlier, which was that there's metas that are regional. And this meta was read by Yenwei to be such that it's not OTK, that it's a little bit more aggressive, and thus putting in cards like, what's it called? I'm sorry. I saw the
you
the
saw
top
the
eight
top
bracket
8.
pop,
Hey, so they
and I got distracted.
Flashed on a top 8 bracket, and then they flashed it right back away. I was gonna interject so that we could take a look at that, but then it's gone in and of itself. They were putting in sync belows, I think is what you were talking about, right?
That's what I was gonna say. They were putting in sync belows because they're such clutch cards, and those sync belows ultimately did factor in. They blocked out those really awkward turns where necessary, and I think both players really did a great job. But there were some misses on the fuses. There were some awkward draws on both sides. It was a well-fought battle. And those last turns where both players were, under 5 health apiece, those were masterfully played. They were very intricate and delicate turns that were piloted and navigated beautifully.
And as it was playing out, I was just sitting here thinking, I didn't want to mention it during the game because I wanted to save it for right now. We could talk about it a little bit more at length. That was a perfect example of how Flesh and Blood, as far as fundamentally, feels at the end of the game, which is so much fun to both play and watch because it feels balanced on that razor's edge for most matchups, most games, where both players are sort of in that last gasp mode where they're really trying to pick out how they can block, where they can get that incremental advantage, who has the real tempo on pivot turns or on those last turns of the game. That's exactly how that played out, where it was like, okay, it looks like Viserai is going to be able to close this out. Oh, it looks like Starvo is going to be able to close this. Oh, nope, it's back to Viserai because of this really smart block. And oh, they had 1 point left on the Arcanite Skullcap. They can throw it, but maybe that 5 attack is what pushed it over, so they're not going to use the Skullcap. Oh, maybe they should have considered it prior, to that moment using the Skullcap because that arcane damage took away the ability to block with it. So many micro decisions that make that entire experience incredibly fascinating.
To Ehrlich MTG in chat, we don't necessarily have a top 8 bracket again. We're basically casting over the calling that's occurring in Taiwan. So some of the assets, some of the information, it's as much of a surprise to us because we're not necessarily privy to all the information, all the stuff that you typically would for the main broadcast. But from an English side, I think we're doing a pretty good job as it were right now. But one of the very integral parts, and you're talking about how the game in the late stages becomes such a fine balance. It becomes such that's where the pros are made, right? Anybody can smash you to pieces, when your health's at 40 or 30 or 20 or whatever. But when the game gets into that really do or die phase, if you remember at the U.S. Nationals and that finals match, I believe it was Tarek Patel versus Tyler Horspool, if I'm not mistaken. Tarek took damage to go to 1 to shut off Tyler's
Skullcap, yes.
Skullcap, yeah. And ultimately that factored in because the follow-up barrage managed to get through because the Skullcap was no longer active for any type of blocking that could have occurred, or on top of that, any kind of arcane blocking that could have occurred. And that kind of, walking the line and knowing the value of taking damage and what that would do.
Yeah,
it's
and
important.
You know what? I'll take it one step further because it's not just that game and that tournament where correctly assessing how to play out an in-game with regards to skullcap has won or lost you a tournament, because it actually happened in the prior it happened in Michael Feng's victory at the Calling, I believe he picked it up at the Calling Cincinnati, where the exact same scenario played out, and he was able to manage his own life total to drop to an equal number or to a lesser number than his opponent, so that he could then present lethal by pushing chunks of arcane damage that they just couldn't stop because they didn't have access to Skullcap being able to pitch into it. That kind of like micro fundamental play has actually been deciding tournaments, high level cash prize tournaments, for almost a year now. And again, like you said, it is that type of thing that makes a pro player. And it's what we're going to see on display, I would imagine, in these next... That idea is what we're going to see on display in these next few rounds, and then going on into major tournaments like Pro Tour and probably Worlds down the road in November. I think it's November, right? November?
It's Worlds, I believe, is going to be November or December, one of the two. And like you mentioned, yeah, exactly. The best in the world. I mean, the Pro Tour is another example of the best in the world that are going to be playing. But in reality, Worlds is, you are the best representation of the country that you won your Worlds in, right? Like, obviously, the best Canadian player is going to face off against the best Italian player, against the best United States player, against the best Australian, etc.
Yeah.
I believe Dalton in my chat mentioned that it was Tarek versus Michael Feng where that happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, then maybe I'm combining those games in my head, because it was that. But it has happened in another game recently too. I'm trying to remember where it was, because every time it pops up, I go, I should make a video on that subject. And I still haven't sat down to make a video on that subject. But I think it's literally decided at least 2 high-level tournaments up till this point that have been cast, and you can find the videos somewhere, because I actually watched them. One of them at the event, one of them not. Maybe it was Indianapolis. No, I can't quite make out where it was. But nevertheless, that type of like micro play, huge to understand. And you can grasp a lot of the macro concepts of the game by just repping. But I think that type of end game, you have to treat like a chess player to a certain degree and put yourself in it, and then figure out what it feels like, and then kind of think. Sometimes you can't avoid it, right? But it's that kind of feeling and practice that you have to put into it. And it's what we're going to see on display over the next couple of months and tournaments, large tournaments.
What I've noticed is, in this game, on the highest levels, is that the final score is typically not indicative of what the match looked like, because a 1-0 match may seem close, but in reality, sometimes you're like, yeah, it wasn't close at all. It's just that the player who won and went down to 1 did so strategically.
Yeah.
It may seem closer than it is, or a game that ends up 10-0. It may seem like a landslide. In reality, it was a closer game. It was just one major final push or something like that.
Sure.
So, again, the best players in the world use their life total to their own advantage. They sacrifice it where necessary, and in these cases, especially with a card like Arcanite Skullcap that has a relation to your life total and your life total in relation to your opponents, it's important to make sure that, as we saw in this case, strategically taking damage to shut off your opponent's defensive capabilities is clutch. And many players are so, I don't want to say afraid, but they're very antsy about giving away life points when, a lot of the time, some of the mentality that a lot of the players I talk to is like, why block? Just don't block. Don't block until you need to. Don't block. It's not important. Don't block.
Right. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And I just want to point this out. This is not in any way, shape, or form belittling people and how they play, and like just overall. What it is it's pointing out something very small that is so easy to miss after so many games back to back to back and multiple days of play, that is very easy to fall into the trap or just miss looking at for a moment. And it's going to be fun to see how this, like the level of play rises as all of these players converge onto large-scale tournaments like the Calling Taiwan that we're watching here. And yes, we are moving into the top 4. We're not quite sure when they're going to kick off the semifinals of the top 4, or I guess of the tournament, I should say. But when we know, you'll know, and we'll go right into the game as well. I'm hoping to see a top 4 bracket pop up soon, but I'm not quite sure what the results of the other matchups are, so we don't know if it's still with a chain, for example, in contention, or if it's Starvos across the board. We're not quite sure on that.
How about we take a quick 2-minute break? I'm going to turn on the I'll let you guys see all the wonderful stuff going on. But we'll be back in like 2 minutes. I'm just going to refresh the coffee, maybe powder my nose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Do all that stuff.
I'm gonna take a 2-minute break. That sounds like fun.
We'll take a quick 2-minute break,
Okay.
but so don't go. Again, there's nothing. You guys are not missing anything because the matches are just getting set up for the semifinals. So don't go too far. We will be right back.
What if we leave and they start the next one? You run.
Well,
just run and get
I will
that
run.
coffee.
It's right there. It is right there. So
I gotta just tiptoe and not like trip over toys. I'll be right back as well.
All right, hang tight. We'll be right back. Same time. Oh, dude, we just got back at the exact same time. Beautiful.
It's amazing.
Beautiful.
We're here. We're back. I gotta press a button though.
That's all good.
Ta-da! The button has been pressed. You know
I've opted.
Go ahead. Did you get some coffee?
No, I didn't. And the reason why is because it is currently 3:30 in the morning. I've been up since about 8 o'clock a.m. the previous day. So we're buzzing through this.
Yeah, water.
Well, it's hydration. And I thought ahead. I got the Cool Blue Gatorade.
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm an absolute athlete and I need my electrolytes.
You got to get those electrolytes in. It's a big moment right here.
I've had about 4 coffees today. So if I want to get to sleep this calendar year, I should probably lay off. But yeah, that's where we're at. But you know what? On a standard day, I do about 3 cups. That's usually how I go. That's why Breezy's wonderful coffee sponsorship is going to be delicious.
Cups wise, chat. Cups wise, what is this size Yeti? How many cups is this? 3? Is this 3? I drink one of these.
No. That's like a 12 ounce, like a 12 or 16 ounce.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Fano in chat says, night, everyone. Are you going to sleep, Fano? He's going to miss it. We miss you already. Also, Black Halo is drinking Fruit Punch Gatorade.
So I got the Cool Blue. I'm usually a Fruit Punch, like a red or an orange.
Breezy says it's coming. He says your coffee's on the way.
Oh, I'm so excited. I am absolutely so excited. And also part of that whole thing, he said, "What kind of coffee machine do you have?" I said, I don't have one because I'm lazy, so I use the instant garbage." And he's like, "We'll hook you up, you peasant. So you do, so you're not the laughing stock of everybody." So he's actually hooking me up with a French press,
Dude, let's
as well.
go. French press is a great option. We could talk coffee. Is that allowed, everybody? Are we chat? Is it okay if we talk about coffee, or do
Why
you
not?
just want us to stick to the old fab? We can go either way, but
Typically,
I'm
when we
a
go off the
fan.
rails, it usually involves Star Wars trivia and people trying to hit me with stuff. But that's kind of. I'm getting a lot of people saying, "Hey, talk about coffee," and by a lot, I like one, but still, that's okay with me because frankly, it's a major fuel for my being.
I am a huge fan of coffee and a huge coffee drinker. I wish I knew more about it than I do, but I have. I started with a French press and did the French press up that whole way through. That was fun. But I shifted off the French press when we started having more kids because it takes a lot of time to get all set up and time is devoted elsewhere. So I got like a coffee maker, and it doesn't make as good tasting coffee, but it makes it fast. And then Christmas came around, and I was like, you know what would be fun? I would like to try a pour over. I'll try a Chemex, sure. And so my family hooked me up with a Chemex and like a little pot to heat up water with, like electric kettle. So I got on that, and I have not. I was like, this will be fun to do for a few days, but then I'll go back to the easy thing. I put the easy thing away, and I only make coffee with the pour over now. And it takes way more time, but it's so worth it.
That's
So
typically
worth it.
that's what I hear. It's just that this is the kind of effort is rewarded through delicious coffee. And frankly, the problem with that whole mantra is that my laziness is some sort of sleeping titan that it's impossible to move. So I'm hoping that the French press maneuver that Breezy's sending my way is going to at least cure me of that. But I've had great coffee. I'm very much I don't want to say I'm a coffee aficionado or a coffee snob in any way, shape, or form, but I did work at a coffee shop for many years. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, you wanna hear a little coffee fact or a little myth, as
Yes.
it were. The darker the roast, the less caffeine. I don't know if you knew that, but light roasts typically are the more caffeinated of coffee. So when you go and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to stay up to, I'll just get a light roast," you're actually getting more caffeine. Espressos have pound for pound the least amount of caffeine against everything else, because the longer that it's roasted, the bean is roasted to get that dark flavor, the more of the caffeine is essentially bled out of the beans.
Yeah, Wizard
Bet you didn't
404
know that.
says, I've never tried pour over, but I bet it's great. And Sinaj says he's on the pour over coffee. And I say, it looks like the stream might be back. The commentators
yeah.
are talking, is all I'm saying.
Here they are.
They're talking.
Yes. And I don't know if there's like a rotation of commentators, but I was listening to some of them earlier. Again, I do not speak. I don't know if they're speaking Mandarin
I
or.
think it's Mandarin, but maybe it's not.
However, the excitement and the enthusiasm was infectious when I was watching them or listening to them cast some of the Swiss rounds. So there's the bracket.
Let's go. Make the transition. Hit the button.
I did.
Okay, cool. All right. It does look like a chain is still left in the hunt, trying to make his way, cutting in. And amongst a field of 3 Starvos, he's trying.
There's a fascinating little thing here, is that the chain, which is on the top end of the bracket, managed to sneak its way to the bottom part of the bracket. I'm assuming that these are correct because it looks like
Yes.
Li Hong Ye should be facing off against Luo Shengzun, but
maybe not. I'm not actually sure.
nonetheless, there will be a Starvo in the finals. Now, the question is, will Chain get there as well? Looks like both players here are squaring up, Mr. Armada. I'm excited. The first game was exceptional.
It was fantastic. If you missed the first game, the quarterfinals match that we watched was down to the wire. It was as close as it probably could possibly get. And I hope that we are in for as much of a treat as we got with that first game in this semifinals matchup. This is in the top 4. It's playing for one of those top spots. And, you know, if you're not quite sure what they're actually playing for as they start their turn and draw up their cards, don't forget that the champion here is getting, I believe it's $7,000 USD and a gold cold foil extended art tunic. The runner-up is getting 3,000, and then the third or fourth place players are both getting 1,000 plus a random drop and a PTI.
Not bad. All right, so this is a little bit of that strategic pitching, as it were, getting rid of some of those cards. Pitch the red first, go follow through with the ice card afterwards. That is just a way to sort of filter your hand a little bit further, as it were. But, you know, swinging through with 4, typically it depends on what you've got going on, but it's often a situation where you don't typically want to give your opponent an opportunity to filter their own hand. But if your hand stinks as well, there's nothing wrong with it either, right?
You're not wrong. He's throwing a Mauve Skies and a Riftbind. Of course, you want that Riftbind there at the end of the game, but it's not as impactful as, obviously, as we used to see Riftbind be when you had Seeds of Agony and rotation. You can still get some crazy Riftbind turns off the backs of things like Minnowisms and, you know, the 2 costs that you can banish and then play, which I'm blanking on. Howl from Beyond. There it was. It popped up there in the old noggin at 2:40 a.m. Howl from Beyond. Those are still some amazing plays off of a Riftbind from Banish, but not as crazy as you used to be able to get back in the day.
Back in the day to me feels like 9 p.m. of Saturday night, but that was like ages ago. Ultimately, friends, we're so glad that you're up with us here, as Armada and I were very excited about this, even though the prospect of staying up all night to cast Fab may seem daunting for some. It is for the love of the game, baby. Damn right.
Yes, this is awesome. And looking at the composition of both these players' hands, this is going to be an interesting turn sequence. I can't quite make it out as far as what the Chain player has. We know the Invert Existence is there. I was really curious to see what those other 2 cards were. It looked like Reduced to Rune Chance, but that would be really interesting.
There's I believe that's a Minnowism that's in there.
We see the Minnowism that he could possibly follow up and play, but perhaps it's not.
Well, we know it's not Seeds of Agony.
Oh yeah, it's not the Seeds. He's gonna make a Soul Shackle here. Bring that aura in, and
I want to ask
looks like a Howl from Beyond, followed by perhaps a Ghostly Visit.
I wanted to ask you. We've seen various approaches to playing against Chain as Starvo. We've seen aggression, try to outrace them, find those big fuses, those Okanodes, those crippling crushes, those spinal crushes, really put the pain on Chain in order to, you know, really limit what they can possibly do, get them to 0 as soon as possible. And then we've seen Michael Hamilton beat an exceptional Chain player by the name of Cody Williams at the Calling in Indianapolis by taking 2 times an approach of Fatigue against it. And even when Cody knew that Fatigue was the plan and he was able to go for it, you know, or to prepare and play as with that in mind, Michael Hamilton was able to fatigue it out. I'm curious if that's the case here. You know, finding a fused Okanold obviously is not necessarily an indication that you're that you are or are not, because if you find a fused Okanold, you're going for it.
This nice little power play following up the attack there from Chain. There's a couple of questionable things we can talk about at another date as far as how that last turn played out, but as far as slamming down a what is that? An unmovable blocking everything on the
plus the grasp, grasp
plus the
plus
grasp
the
blocking
unmovable.
everything makes that a nice little dodge there, right?
Well, the on-hit effect, again, that's the beauty of Okanold. Okanold is one of the most powerful cards in the game when it gets everything going. Coming in as a 9 dominate with an on-hit disruption effect. I mean, and it only costs 3. It's so versatile. It's so good. Being able to stuff that card, you know, typically when you're playing in Starvo, you're saying, okay, that's 1 Okanold down. There's 2 more around the corner, maybe some crippling crushes. People are usually keeping track of this stuff. But at the moment, this is the situation, and that's one of those major threats that were basically mitigated.
Yeah. Coming across with a very weak turn overall in sort of response, coming across with a Shackle into a Rosetta Thorn just for 2 straight up, holding a single card, no resources floating. Obviously, he pitched the Command and Conquer, so not floating anything there. This is an easy take here from the Starvo player. And then asking if there's anything else. In this case, there's not, because he wants to stuff that arsenal so that he can perhaps use it next turn. If it's a defense reaction, then you're feeling pretty comfortable. Again, as Chain, overall, your game plan is to survive until these shackles start to really rack up and then be able to put on counter pressure. Shows the fuse on the beautiful double-sided Starvo, as we can see there. And comes across, asking for a card first with Winter's Bite.
Nothing wrong about that. Again, it's, you already have a card in arsenal. There's another pitch for typically the earth card. You pitch blue for the earth card. Usually it's the lightning, and then you pitch another ice to swing hammer. If you already have a card in arsenal, then that's not a big deal. So you can go ahead and lead in with the Winter's Bite and tax your opponent. So that Winter's Bite is forcing the opponent to make a decision. Do I pay 1 or do I discard? Obviously, it's usually just a pitch, which is going to be helpful, frankly, because you're loading up now for late game for those soul shackles.
Yes, it's beneficial here. And assuming that this is it's the red Autumn's Touch, this does come for 9 with Go Again, which is pretty big for a middling sort of attack to slam down and just push for 9 damage, dominate Go Again, and then allow you to follow this up with a hammer for 4 after it.
What's so great about these Starvo lists when it comes to the ice cards that you're putting in there, oftentimes, especially the lightning cards, usually it's just filler, whatever makes sense to fit in there as blue lightning cards. But Winter's Bite is a blue ice card. Usually it's pitch for hammer, when necessary, but it does sometimes find that clutch time to come in and really disrupt your opponent. And in this case, that's exactly what's going on here. 9, Go Again, a hammer on top. Real nasty.
Yeah, here's a fun card in this list. Someone in chat pointed this out, and it's actually a card that I very much like. Blue Reek of Corruption, a card that came out in Everfest, and if you've created an aura, which is very easy to do in Chain by just making a Soul Shackle, then if the attack hits, Reek of Corruption, if it hits, then it forces a card out of your opponent's hand to discard. And kind of just like a weird little value card at blue. It acts as pitch. It blocks for 3, but you could also play it down in a pinch on weird corner cases, which is kind of fun. And allowing him here just to block a little bit of damage. But it is a pretty cool tech piece, and one that I've messed around with in Chain actually myself in Blitz.
So as it stands now, life total being what it is, there's a 5-point lead here for Ling Hongye, but keep in mind that Chain only gets nasty late game. There are those are two rips off the top that make sense here, but I don't think there's no pitch. So there's going to be a 2 points of blood debt tax that he's going to have to, pay the dues for. And but again, those are cards that are going to stay in the banish zone for a future turn. So taking 2 blood debt now is not so bad. You can always play that again, of course.
There is an argument to be made of keeping those in the banish so that you can stack up for a future turn, which is not a bad play overall, because you can kind of snowball a couple of large attacks by just paying a few points of your life total. Here instead, just trying to get some of that out so that you can keep your banish zone clean and avoid excess damage, perhaps, is the play here. It also depends on what's in the arsenal, because if it's a 0 cost, attack, or I don't know, anything that can really push some damage or allow you to capitalize, then maybe you want to play it. But really, I think this is maybe just him choosing to clear out some of the banish zone to avoid blood debt. I think there is definitely a line here where I would consider just leaving those in. But maybe that is greedy against a Starvo player that could possibly just jam out, I don't know, a dominated Crippling Crush and destroy the hand, something like that.
So that's a full block here. The Ram's Head plus the Crown of Seeds. He did pick up a Crippling Crush off the cycle with the Crown of Seeds. Now, does he still maintain a fuse with the Starvo? That would be brilliant here if he could pick that up. We'll see if he does have all the elements. It looks like he does. There's the big Starvo full art coming through. Winter's Bite, Evergreen, and some claws. That's good to summon Captain Planet. Why not?
And the shake of the head from the Chain player saying, this is not what you want to see. And of course, it is a dominated Crippling Crush for the casual. 13 with Go Again, floating a card in hand. And this might be the reason why you would want to clear out some of your Blood Debt Banish Zone stuff, because if this goes through, you may not have much to work with, and you'll be just taking more points and banishing more stuff. It does have an Art of War in hand, and that's exactly the kind of card that you'd want to keep and set up for your own large turn. But if you just say, okay, cool, I'll take all this Crippling Crush damage and then discard 2 cards, maybe you end up hitting, unfortunately, that Art of War, so it makes it a calculated risk.
That flash that he pitched in order to get the cycle off of the Crown of Seeds was like the greatest pitch ever, frankly. It basically allowed you to go ahead and mitigate the damage from using Crown of Seeds, Ram's Head, and pick up a Crippling Crush that you can fuse and come in for 13 Dominate, Go Again. The Go Again I don't think is going to factor in here, as I'm pretty sure there's just the 1 card left. It's just going to be, you're going to pocket that card, drop to 4, and laugh all the way to the bank here. This is a nasty bill that Li Hongye is going to have to pay here.
And this is really,
Crush Effect.
Yeah, this is going to force cards out of his hand. He's going to throw the Husk in front of this. This is a huskable target, as one might say, because the composition of this hand, from what we can tell, we can see like a Revel in Runeblood. We can see an Art of War. Those are powerful cards that you would want to set up on your own turn and do something with. Use that time to rip cards from hand, plus whatever you end up banishing. And if you didn't have to stare down a dominated Crippling Crush that really cripples your hand, then you might just get away with it. And this is exactly why we see him throwing the Husk plus all the equipment that he can to keep some semblance of a hand and maybe play Art of War, maybe snake it into some of these attacks you may end up banishing depending on how your banishes go.
Let's be real here. That was precisely the right amount he needed to just get there, so to avoid the Crush Effect. Here comes the rips off the top.
You hate to see your specialization get banished, but you're okay with the Bounding Demagon. I think it's a red bounding. Depending on what you have in hand and what you can kind of like banish draw 2 with, you're probably okay, depending on your resources. And of course, there's a lot of variables that we can't quite make out based on hand composition, but anytime you look at a hand as chained with an Art of War in it, you're like, all right, we can work with this.
That Husk is so vital in terms of what Chain can do. Again, the Carrion Husk blocking for 6, but eventually becomes useless at a certain life total. But just tossing it out this early can potentially come back to bite Li Hongye. We've seen what this can, what carrying Blood Debt over and over. If you get caught with a turn where you're just holding on to this pocket full of Blood Debt, that's essentially going to singe you through your genes. It's just nasty in that regard. But for Chain, typically, Armada, usually you're at that 5 or 6 shackle range, and that's where the math gets nasty. Yeah. That's where there's a lot of creative accounting that you need to do to make sure that you're able to go through here. But we've seen that Starvo has just not relented in terms of pressure on the Chain player. So, obviously there's no more fatigue. It's not a matter of fatigue. I think it's just a matter of just trying to go pedal to the metal here and try to make it awkward. I mean, being able to draw into an Oakenol, draw into a Crippling Crush, forcing your opponent to give you cards at that shackle turn. It's pretty nasty, but this is going to be a turn that is finally going to, start to clap back.
Yeah, this is the turn that you want to set up if you're the Chain player, to try and take cards from hand to stop the constant barrage and pressure of the Starvo triggers that you might have to stare down. And looking at the Starvo player's hand, we did see a Pulse of Candlehold, which does make triggering Starvo so much more comfortable and easy. So it would be fantastic to be able to push a bunch of damage in a bunch of different ways. And it looks like that's what he's trying to do here. Playing a Ghostly Visit from hand first. This does have Go Again off the back of the Soul Shackle made here before actually playing it this time. And then we have a variety of follow-ups that you could have with like Unhallowed Rites that you chose to banish off of Art of War, which pushes a nice breakpoint. You could just play out the Bounding Demagon. There's a variety of things that you can do. And if he's holding, I can't remember what his pocket card is, but yeah, exactly. If you're holding a like a non-attack, Spellbound Creepers here could be something that you activate, on one of those turns where or on one of those moments where you're trying to get Go Again. Now here he does actually have Go Again already, so I'm not sure he needs to play down the non-attack, but he could have a specific card in hand that generates some Rune Chance, like that Revel that he blocked with last turn. Maybe he had a double Revel hand or something like that.
Chain has always been a hero that has had so many fascinating interactions, so many intricate, game texts and such. And Spellbound Creepers is one of those cards that can really do some nasty stuff. But
it will stack up his action point. That's what I think he's explaining. Is he'll gain an action point if he plays a Go Again. My apologies, but he's going to play from Arsenal a Shadow Puppetry, which will gain him an action point basically off the resolution of that Go Again text, plus the resolution of the Ghostly Visit Go Again text.
So there you go. It's exactly. This is precisely it. This is where you need to have like a degree in flesh and blood law, as it were. You need to be, an attorney when it comes to this kind of stuff, because you have to not only understand the text, but then at the same time convince your opponent that you're correct, which you are. But ultimately, it's just a matter of it's not a matter of trust me. You have to have the capacity to explain to your opponent what's going on. I have been caught in these situations early on, but these are pros. I mean, this is the semi-final, the Calling in Taiwan. So it's just always good to be clear about these things. But look what this Chain player can do. The Chain player has just strung together this incredible turn, but there's still a pile in the Blood Debt. So there's going to be some potential taxation with no float there, but two action points remaining. Starvo here is under pressure.
He's threatening a lot here too, because if this does hit because of Shadow Puppetry, he could continue this line and banish something else. But at the very least, he looks at the top of his deck to see what he's going to draw, and if he wants to banish it or not. It looks like he is going to look at it. He's going to leave it on top because it's a Mauvrian Skies. That's something you don't want in the banish zone, of course. But then you can follow this up, since you do have an action point remaining. You could follow this up with like the Unhallowed Rites, the Rift Bind, depending on what he's got here. He's pitching, coming in with the Rift Bind to push extra damage. He's pushed a ton of damage on the back of a single Art of War. That's exactly what you want to do. And you can see the Starvo player stubbornly refusing to give him any cards. As you mentioned earlier, top-level players say, just don't block.
Just don't block. It's that simple, right? Typically, the decision tree I used to go through was, okay, on-hit effect, no. Lethal, no. Block, no. So you just go through that and you're fine. But in this case, the problem being that, usually if you're absorbing this amount of damage, it's because you've got a hand that could potentially push your opponent into an uncomfortable decision because their life total is immensely threatened. Their prospects of winning the game. Well, that's quite the brave move, frankly, given the fact that the Chain players are still at 29 health still. So even with an incredibly huge turn as Starvo, you need to string together multiple fuses of disruption style cards like Spinal Crushes or Oaken Olds or Crippling Crushes, anything that's going to stunt your opponent's ability to have those big turns. But ultimately, even as Chain right now can eat an Oaken Old or eat a Crippling Crush, hold two cards that are blue in hand, and still pop off for immense amounts of damage.
Yeah, because this is the benefit of playing as Chain, and perhaps why we see Chain consistently making its way into these top 8s at like higher level tournaments, because they're playing with two hands. They're playing with a hand that they're holding, and then they hand off the top of the deck when they banish things. And again, we still see it, a pitch, a Crown of Seeds, a draw into 4 cards. We're wanting to keep our options open for a Starvo trigger. Looking at the hand, though, it's not looking like you have one of those big, like, overwhelming attacks. Maybe you just, at this point, you've been so holding on to the possibility of getting that, big counter swing. At this point, maybe you look at this and you go, just protect my life total in some way, shape, or form and just be okay with losing some cards. Doesn't look like he's going to do that. He looks like he's just going to full grip onto his turn and try to swing back some tempo. But this is a lot of stuff going on.
This is an incredibly, important moment, because this is where you need to be able to know what chain can do. This is where knowing your opponent's deck is important as well,
And
because
that's the big moment too. You have to wonder as the chain player, are they just sitting on Awakening for that big pivot turn? Because that's like the only thing that really hits you hard is if they have Awakening into a Fuse into, I don't know, Pulverize, Crippling Crush for the hand, Oaken that sort of stuff.
he's eyeing the crippling right now. That's what's sort of in the there it is. Okay, so that's what's coming through. There's going to be enough seismic surges to basically make sure that you and your next 3 generations are getting a free ride. But ultimately, this is what I'm talking about, is that if you, as a Starvo player, if you don't know what the full capacity is, what that full ride is like with the cards that are peeled off the top, if you are not aware of just what the ceiling is, you might think that, okay, my hand is good. I'm going to eat 12 or 15 damage, but I'll be able to swing back for 12 or 15 and I'll feel good. But if that 12 or 15 that you're anticipating becomes 18 to 22 or something like that, because you were just not aware of what the capabilities of chain was like for stringing together, go against, etc.
Sure.
If you are not adept at that chain game, then you're going to get caught flat-footed, because then that comfortability of taking 12 damage to deal 15, suddenly you're taking 20 to deal 15, and you basically committed to it altogether. You said, well, I've gone this far, I'm all in. You're pot committed, right? So,
good Lord, look at this. He's got 19. He has so many, he could eat them and like sustain himself on the amount of seismic surges he has at the table right now.
It's like 2.5 crippling crushes.
That's an immense amount of seismic surges. It will definitely wake you up. He's going to take a 2 points of blood debt here at the end, because Husk always deals the blood debt. And then, of course, the Unhallowed Rites still in there. And, if you're the chain player, you're like, I'm not a fan of the way that this play is going to kind of come out. But, at this point, I may as well just take the damage off that back of that Fuse and lose the cards from hand, and then play whatever I have off the banish. Again, it's the benefit of playing as chain. You have a second hand.
So he picked up the crippling and opting to, I guess, dominate.
No, he grabbed the Oaken. He was deciding between several, but he ended up choosing the Oaken. After all, put that into his hand, and then off the back of his 28,000 seismic surges, he could play anything.
I mean, give or take a couple here and there.
I mean, with
the exchange rate, we don't know. From in Taiwan, in North America, those seismic surges might have a different exchange rate, but ultimately, it gets the job done. And life total is a little bit more, hefty here, but I don't know if that's enough at this point, for the amount of damage that was taken for that Awakening.
Not a good banish. Those are not good banishes. Hitting those really cool looking talismans. Not cold foil though, so we do have to knock him a point on that. No, we don't have to knock him a point on that. Those are fantastic looking though when they are in cold foil. Hits only the Shadow Averser, unfortunately, which is kind of a bummer, because you legit just took that damage so that you could perhaps play out a semi-big turn off the back of the 2 cards in your hand, which are resource cards, and whatever you banish. But now you're looking at, well, just basically the card that you had in banished before, because the Shadow Verser doesn't really do much for you, acting as 2 with go again.
Well, let's be real here, Armada. It's a matter of, when your opponent is at 10 health, as the Starvo player is right now, you as chain, you're just saying, all right, I just got to make sure that I find I rip off the top and find that kind of gas that I need, because 10 is easily busted through when necessary. It might come down to that last turn if necessary. How many times have you seen chain games where they've basically peeled off the top of their deck, they are running dry, they're running on fumes, but that major turn is like, it's like the last 2-3 minutes of a basketball game. It lasts 20 minutes because, frankly, it might be the end of the game, but the amount of creative accounting that needs to be done, the amount of just mapping out these turns it's such an intricate surgical process.
Yeah. For those that are asking, by the way, in chat, why Talisman of Tithes came off the top there. Talisman of Tithes is a card that you can play out that has go again, and it just sits there. And it says that if your opponent would draw like one or more cards during during your action phase, instead you destroy it, and they don't draw any cards basically because it's played against Crown of Seeds, wherein like your opponent tries to use Crown of Seeds on their turn, or on your turn, I should say, and you just pop the Talisman of Tides, and instead they just don't Crown of Seeds. So it stopped Crown of Seeds in its tracks, but unfortunately it's going to do nothing because it's in the Banish Zone.
Both of them are. I don't know how many copies in total were floating around in there, but 2 of them got peeled off the top and just put through the paper shredder. They're banished. They're gone, and they ain't coming back.
Gonna take the blood debt damage, I would imagine here. No, he's choosing. Yes, he is choosing to take the blood debt damage off the Unhallowed Rites as well. He did Soul Shackle for the Shadow Averser, but not gonna follow it up because you don't have the pitch, I believe. Maybe he did have the pitch. I'm not sure why he didn't follow that up. Nevertheless, drawing up his hand, passing on over to the Starvo player.
Yeah, in chat here saying spicy tech or bad card, you be the judge. Frankly, honestly, that's a fine line that you dance between a spicy tech card or just a bad decision, and ultimately, we'll never get to know because they have been evaporated. They're gone.
That's right.
Presto changeo, hocus pocus, they're gone. As this is just a blue evergreen, if I'm not mistaken. Not exactly the most devastating of moves here, but I believe.
He's got a Pulse in hand, and he also has what he's probably going to Arsenal, which is the Lightning Surge. If he chooses to Arsenal something, pop that Lightning Surge down in there. And then most likely Crown of Seeds it away. Could also play Lightning Surge just for like the 2 go again, which is kind of spicy in that respect.
This might be a window here for Li Hongyan to just say, all right, give me 5, no problem. Because I would love to have 4 cards in hand and rip 5 cards off the top. It's potentially, he might just be tossing cards away that he knows he can't play. Cards that don't have go again action cards, knowing that he might pick up a ton of them off of the top of Vexing Malice.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's doing. It's tempting to just try and say, I'm going to keep a full grip, but there's actually no point to doing that because what you're doing at this point of the game when you have 5 shackles is playing out just about everything that you hit and banished. And so your cards in your hand become less useful because you need to clear blood debt so that you don't die. And in this case, he could have probably chosen to keep stuff because he whiffed pretty hard, only hitting another Shadow Averser. But he did keep a 3-card hand, so maybe he can still string together a decent. But you could see the visible look of frustration tilting his head back and saying, where are all of my banishes? Because they're definitely not in the banish zone.
Well, think about it this way. I mean, every turn that he's able to survive, he knows that his odds are going better. He's basically filtering out all of the garbage, as it were, the stuff that he's not going to be able to. Now, it's awful to see it in this regard because, if all 5 of those were great peels off the top, it would have been a whole different ball game, right? Unfortunately, now it's just a matter of like, okay, it's coming, but will I be alive when it gets here? And in this case, he has to push something together here to at least maybe take some cards out of Starvo's hand, maybe even just tickle the thought of lethal to a degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. And looking at Starvo's hand, he has 2 pulses and a blink. And we know the arsenal, I believe, is that Lightning Surge I mentioned earlier, which is just a blue 2 attack. So unless that last attack, or unless that last card in hand is an attack, this is actually kind of a horrible hand. It looks like it's, oh my god, it's a Heaven's Claws. So actually, even though he whiffs on the banishes, there's a window for Chain here to still capitalize and put out some amount of damage and say to the Bravo Star of the Show player, well, if you have a good hand, you're going to have to consider getting rid of it. And in this case, he doesn't really have a good hand.
There's an opportunity here to pitch one of those lightning cards that you're not going to use. It'll allow you to crown. It'll allow you to activate your Rampart of the Ram's Head. If by some means there's some arcane damage coming through, you'll have one floating for your boots. So that's a possibility over here. You'll get some value off of 1 blue pitch, and perhaps you find the extra piece that's necessary. What if you pick up like an Okanold? I don't know if you have the right pieces in hand already. I don't know what you're missing. I didn't see what pulse was in there.
I think he has 2 pulses. He has both pulses in hand. He's got a blink. He's got something else. He's going to choose to put a Howl from Beyond to the bottom as well. But literally, his hand is just down to Crown of Seedsing and like hitting a big attack, which is pretty rough. But here, threatening 4 damage with Go again, coming across, and then keeping what looks like 2 cards in hand as well, floating 2 resources. This is where you want to be able to push something.
So this is where we can kind of go back to that, the beginning of the game where we're talking about the strategy that Bravo can take. Because we've seen aggression versus chain, and we've seen patience and fatigue versus chain. And frankly, in all the high-level matches I've seen, patience and fatigue has been the more reliable and successful strategy and approach to chain. As we see here now, when they're trading blows, chain eventually just continues to pick up momentum and momentum and momentum in regards to, that power level. Whereas Starvo might be able to pick up some late game pushes, etc. But ultimately, chain just gets stronger and stronger as you go. It's just that snowball going down the hill, right? It eventually just becomes this massive boulder that you cannot stop.
Yep, that's the beauty of chain, right?
Absolutely. And in this case, I mean, I think, and you need to commit to that strategy. Pivoting midway through will do justice. It'll do you no favors. You need to, if you're committing to fatigue, you need to commit to fatigue from turn 1 through till the end of the game. Letting any damage through can be problematic. And as we see here, this is where it becomes dangerous, because now everything that these turns are only going to get nastier and nastier, and you will not have any leeway. You won't have enough runway, as it were, in order to absorb damage so you can start swinging back. So those big Starvo turns that you were hoping for late game are no longer a possibility because your life total is so low.
Yeah, he's coming across with Rosetta here. After pushing this Rosetta damage and just taking, there was this line mentioned while you were speaking. There's a line mentioned in chat, which I thought was fantastic. With wherein, and we might see him actually play this out, which I didn't notice at the time. I guess chalk it up to it being pretty late right now or early in the morning. He's going to fuse here, but you can candle hold at instant speed and then grab something to the top of the deck, and then Crown of Seeds the arsenal away to draw said thing that you get off of the top of the deck. Basically acting as like a pseudo rattle bones effect off the top of the deck with Crown of Seeds, which is kind of fun. And that is a fantastic line. Looking at the discard pile, though, you have to grab an elemental, or I think it's an earth or an elemental. Is it earth, lightning, or elemental that Crown of Seeds fetches? So at this point, I think you're only fetching like that blue, the blue Autumn's Touch. I can't quite make out what his graveyard was, though. We may see him play that out exactly. Nevertheless, it is going to be Dominate +2 Go again. Shout out to the several people that mentioned that in chat. That is a fantastic line.
Yeah, that was a line that Michael Hamilton took, I think, to go ahead and pick up some more of those mate pieces, right? That basically kind of sealed the deal for some of those late game plays. It's basically a matter of saying, all right, I'm going to go put something real fat and sassy on top of my deck and then just go get it. And not only am I going to go get it, I'm going to let my Tunic pay for it too. So we're not really losing anything out here. So there it is.
Oh, that's right. I had the Oakenold. I forgot the Oakenold was in the discard pile.
So there's the Oakenold on top of the deck, and then you're going to go ahead and use your Tunic and your Crown to go pick up that Oakenold. There it goes. Tunic value. See you later. Let's do a little do-si-do with our arsenal on the top of our deck, and oh, hello. What's
what could
this?
that card be? And then you can play this off the back as well. That's very interesting, being able to just slam down the Pulse of Folthaven and jam out a nice big chunky Oakenold. Oh no, and the chain player just drew into an Art of War hand, which basically would have been the game.
Oh boy. So 13 dominate on hit. Yeah, see you later. Adios, goodbye. The Starvo player going down to 4, no skull cap. The husk is gone.
Yes,
the skull cap is offline. And the gloves are used up.
Yeah, there is no equipment block available at this point for the chain player, and this is that moment of defeat when you see that giant attack on the board. And I think it is a 15 dominate because it gets the pulse effect as well, like the plus whatever, +4.
Well, so it was. So it's It's technically 9 off the Starvo because it was not fused by itself.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
9 off the Starvo
Gotcha.
plus the 4 from the Volthaven.
Wait,
That's
did he
13.
revealed? No, I think he revealed the Pulse of Candlehold and the Pulse of Volthaven at the beginning.
Right,
of the
but he wasn't able to further fuse the Oakenold, right?
Oh,
so
that's correct. I see what. Yes, you were
yeah.
100% correct. Yes.
So you're getting smoked here.
Yeah, I mean,
because
this is a bad moment.
well, you're giving up some cards, and you already have 2 floating. I think he's taking what, 10 damage here. So did he block for 3 or for 2? I wasn't aware, but ultimately you were going to see in a second here going down to 2, and now here come the blood debts that you were really worried about earlier on. But that's a big whiff in itself too.
Yeah.
But is this enough to get through this? This could be game changing on both sides.
He keeps the Art of War, and because it wasn't fused, he's not going to have to force that discard, which is a huge change. And that is, I guess, one of the things we're lacking, not being closer to the action, being able to kind of pick apart which fuses and knots. Nevertheless, the fact that you have Art of War in hand, 2 cards to use for resources, and the what is that? I think a blue plus a yellow plus a red Bounding Demagon all stacked up there, and an arsenal. This could be good for the chain player, unless that happens to be some. Oh, he's going to come in with a Mavrian Skies as well. Happens to be like a Blizzard in hand. Nope, looks like a Channel Lake Frigid. Oh, there is a Blizzard.
There's a Blizzard as well. That is going to be massive. That is a really great card to pick up in this pivotal turn, because it's basically make or break time here for the chain player. Going down to 2, holding on to the hands again, given the fact that the Oakenold itself was not fused. It was fused by Starvo, so there was no on-hit effect. So there's no hand disruption at all. It was just pure damage, but look where you're at. And there's the Blizzard saying, all right.
He's going to happily pay for it, and he has 1 card left in hand. He may be considering just like pressuring him with middling damage here, taking cards from his hand, and then arsenaling the Art of War, which allows you some flexibility, because if your opponent just comes back at you with something decent, you could, in a pinch, play it defensively, but you're also setting up for perhaps a blowout turn after banishing even more cards off the top. Now, it really does come down, as the chain player, to you counting how many banishes you have in your deck and knowing at any given moment. And yeah, exactly what the Starvo player is looking at, knowing how many invert existences are in the deck still, because you do have to play around invert existences.
So you have to clear up everything, because if you leave any cards in the banish zone, you're going to die to that 1 card you've left there plus the Carrion Husk, right? So you need to make sure that you are cleaning out, you're cleaning house. Spring cleaning's in effect right here. So block what you can. I think that what you're doing here as the Starvo player is just trying to go and just stuff this as hard as you can.
Oh, he's going to Art of War in response, I think, to give a buff over the top, perhaps. He could also be choosing to give Go Again so that he can do exactly what you're saying and clear. No, it is perhaps giving that buff. But Art of Warring here allows you the opportunity to play that sort of mind game trick, that combat trick as well. And going to clear the Bounding Demagon. I think he did choose Go Again here, not indicating that he's playing out the Chain Soul Shackle.
So now it's a matter of also just evaluating where these cards are going to be best used. If you're the Starvo player, you can't the card that you're pitching, you're not really pitching it for any reason. Like if you want to activate the Ram's Head, let's say, because I don't know how much breaking of the chain there will be for the chain player here, wherein you'll get extra value off of the Ram's Head. So I think the cards in hand right now, which is what, a Channel Lake Frigid, which blocks for 3. I'm trying to think of what else is in there.
Well, I think you do have the ability here to throw the Rampart out there, because he's going to shackle so that he can go again Rosetta, right? So you can assume that he's going to you could block conceivably with the Rampart on the next Bounding, and then follow up with a Rampart block perhaps on the Rosetta if they break the chain the second time. But even like blocking here and then bringing it back and then blocking the next Bounding gets you a total of blocking for 3. So it is worth considering, right?
This is such a beautiful, beautiful game right here. This is what I love about Flesh and Blood, and all the decisions that led up to this moment over here. As you could see, all the players clean that up, no problem. We're
Breaking the
still
chain.
going. Yeah, breaking the chain. We still got to go strong here. You got to clean up that one extra card if
And look at
necessary.
this. One card left in hand. Only the ability to stop one arcane damage. So he just makes a rune chant, pushes Rosetta for 1, 2, and 2, and that
Oh
seals
my
the
goodness.
game. And Chain sneaks out into the finals, out of the semifinals, and into the finals.
Incredible game. Absolutely incredible. I'm always astounded at how these chain players can make it happen, especially since so many of the tools have been clipped out of Chain's arsenal, as it were, and still managing to find a way through. That was really well done. And usually when it comes down to these chain games, Armada, it's always that last turn. It always seems like it's do or die on that last turn. Either I win or I lose. There's no in between.
Yeah.
You love to see it. What a match.
Yep. The go again +1 being chosen there at the end allows him to open up that line and just steal all the cards from his hand. It all came on the back of that large Art of War turn that really pushed the life deficit down. If you can get Starvo to that low life total, their only real big way out, right, is Awakening, which is kind of what we saw play out in the Viserai matchup, where you push the life total way down, and if they have Awakening, then they can swing back very easily. If they don't have Awakening, then you can kind of maintain control to a certain degree and use your life total to stop some of those scary on-hit effects that may not matter if you can still maintain some pressure. And that's, in this case, that's what we saw play out, is he just kept pressure and said, yeah, you can deal some damage back to me, and I'm just going to keep my hand, and then the cards that I banish are going to become my hand as well.
Yeah, it's tough to, there's always sort of like the retrospect of like, oh, if I did this, if I did that, or whatnot, or this and that. But like, ultimately, when it comes down to playing against Chain, one of the things that I've always gone back and sort of reviewed the game tape, as it were, is I always tell myself, I'm like, man, I just shouldn't have taken damage. I should not have taken so much damage. I should, because for me also, I'm not a Chain player, so oftentimes when I'm evaluating what my opponent has in their banish zone, what they see is not what I see. They see 20 plus damage. I see maybe 13 or 14 damage.
Right.
And sometimes I'm comfortable taking it if my swing back is going to be bigger. But that's, like I've mentioned earlier, it is so important that, to differentiate yourself from average player to some of the best in the world. It's not only a matter of knowing your deck inside out and being a pro at your own deck that you're playing. You need to know everyone else's strategies, and Chain is one of those main examples of knowing what they're capable of so that you're not caught flat-footed. Because I feel like there are situations where players feel like they're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to eat this because this is what I'm going to take, and my clapback's going to be bigger. And as the appetizers keep coming through, and as the main dish comes, and then the dessert, and then it's like lunch at my Italian grandmother's house. Like, it's just it's always more than you think it is, and even when you think it's done, there's more. So that's kind of what happened.
It's
but
one of those,
man, oh man,
it's one of those scenarios too where, like, if you're playing against a Chain, you have to always respect Art of War to a certain degree, right? Because you're looking at this, you're like, Art of War allows in this moment where it was like a middling damage turn, maybe they're going to push like, I don't know, 12 damage or something like that, which is nothing to scoff at. But Art of War turns that into, like 20 plus damage, and it's threatening like all these weird things now because people are starting to include weird like Reek of Corruption, which is a fantastic addition, because if you play that on an already buffed like Art of War turn, it's also demanding a card from hand after it hits. Like, there's so many things to think about against Chain that if you don't have the huge amount of reps or the, I guess like you're saying, full understanding of what Art of War specifically can do for a turn, then you can just get blown out by it.
Absolutely. And even with Chain missing some vital pieces that he's dropped along the way, we've seen some less than ideal whiffs. These weren't those massive historic, shackle turns, those 5-6 shackles off the top where that Chain player can string together 25 to 30 damage.
Yeah.
That wasn't what we saw. We saw a very methodical approach of pushing damage in awkward ways over multiple turns and taking the licks as they came his way.
Yep.
So Chain still getting it done. Matt Gomi in chat saying, can't wait for Chain to get more shadow cards in Uprising. Another person who is feeling that there's going to be shadow cards in Uprising. I'm one of those people, definitely.
So if you're just tuning in, we're about to have the finals. Whenever they set the match up and launch it, we'll take you right to it. But it's going to be Chain versus Starvo. Chain versus Starvo in the finals for the Calling Taiwan. And I can't wait to see how this plays out, because I don't know about you, I did not expect to see Chain in the finals, but
No.
absolutely earned their way there through the top 8 has Chain.
I will say this. I know that Chain is good. Yet I know that it performs well. I know that the best players can pilot it immaculately. Yet I'm still somehow, to my own stubborn idiocy, am surprised every time I see it in a top 8. And every time it succeeds, I act surprised, because I am, but I shouldn't be. And I'm just trying to drill it into my mind that I'm like, it's still good. It's still good. It's just a little airborne. It's still good. It's still good. I need to take a quick break. So I'm gonna take a quick 2 minutes.
I'm gonna sit here and regale everyone with another story. It's story time. Everyone get ready.
Buckle up for story time. I'll be right back.
I don't have any stories. I don't have any stories to tell. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll give him the
or whatever. But I'm gonna talk to Mike. I love that Session Blood is here, saying Stalagmite better into Chain over Rampart. You do your thing, Flake. I'm not gonna tab away though, so everyone has to watch Flake walk away. Look at that cool chair he's sitting in. Way cooler than I gotta get a chair like Flake. That guy's got it made. In the shade. Also, look at that. He's got a really nice background. Anyway, I love that For Funsies in chat said it's Azalea versus Levia. When will they get their first true points on the board? That's the real question. Lore time. See, I wish I had some more. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? You want to know about Shiana? Well, we don't know too much about Shiana, but we did learn that in the most... Okay, here we go. We did learn that in the most recent lore article that Shiana has magical capabilities and a shape-shifting mask. Okay, so up until this point, we actually didn't know how Shiana was a shapeshifter. There was just some flowery speech in her overall story, like description, that said, oh, when someone looks at her, in the night, it almost looks as if she has a different face, like hinting at mystical properties. But it turns out that she can cast magic on a mask, make it look like a perfect replica of someone else's face. There you go. There's your Kasai bit. Necromancer and Alchemist in Uprising. I'm going to take the hat off. Battle for worst spot in the game. No, this hat is actually surprisingly comfortable. It is incredibly large, but the people at Big Pirate Hats, which is where I got this, Big Pirate Hats, absolutely nailed the fit. The fit and feel are top notch. Battle for worst spot in the game. Azalea versus Levia. I say Levia, but Levia works too. I think both are great characters. That's how I feel. Now we saw Icelander's Affliction card. When do we get an Affliction Assassin? Hey, I'm just going to say this. I saw Affliction Aura, and back in, I think it was early it was 2019 still. In 2019, I got absolutely enamored with a game called Flesh and Blood, and I made custom cards for a game called Flesh and Blood. And I made some Ranger cards. I called it Archer at the time. I made some custom Archer cards. I also made a class all the way around the Alchemist. Or no, I called him a Poisoner. And what they did is they played items that when you activated it, it gave your opponent a token that they couldn't get rid of. And it gave them a status effect. And I thought, look at that. Perfect.
What happened?
No, nothing. I was just talking to chat. Just telling them about 2019 and things that younger, more sleep-filled me used to do with my free time. Like make custom cards for Flesh and Blood, because that's what I chose to do.
Well, I mean, we all have skills. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when you were on the podcast, when you were on Instant Speed, I asked you, what is your secret, your hidden talent? Did I not?
I don't remember that, but if you did, go. I don't know if do I have a secret talent? What did I say?
What was it? It's not the hat, though. The hat
It's
could be a talent.
Not the hat. I don't. Yeah, I don't know if that's a talent.
Having a hat is not a talent in itself, but so it's 4:30 in the morning. This tournament will essentially end while the sun comes up. Right over there, that sun over there. I'm so. When people were asking me, they're like, "So when is this happening? Are you like gonna like cast it the next day? Like, is it gonna be a rebroadcast?" I said, "No. We're doing this live.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live." And
right.
when it says like, "Why?" I said, "Love of the game, baby. Love of the game."
Boom.
Basically, in that regard. Right. So yeah, man. Sorry for my brief absence. I had to go and take some medication. So
no, you're all good. We were just talking about how we really thoroughly enjoyed the background of your abode there with all those cool pictures and things.
True story. Everything on the wall over here, including a full wall on that side of my apartment, they're all framed comic books, and all of the comic books all of them that are framed are autographed by the artist and or author.
That's awesome.
And all of them were done in person. I never buy autographs. I always go meet the person. So there's some pretty significant issues and stuff like there, but I'm a massive comic book person. I used to want to be a comic book writer. I have a drawer like right over here filled with like random scripts and stuff that I've written.
All right,
but
pull them out. We're waiting for the finals to start. Go ahead and start reading.
Just jamming them out. I mean, do I have any near? No, they're all like stored away.
Gaming says, "Who says having a hat is not a talent? That guy knows a thing or two about hats. He owns the Ragamuffins hat." And
does he the actual Ragamuffins hat?
I mean, it's close enough. Brian wants me to link the hat store. It's an Etsy page. Literally, all you do is Google "big pirate hats." That's all you do, and you get yourself linked to. Wouldn't you guess it? A place that sells big pirate hats. And this one was not terribly expensive either. I thought, you know what? Let's just go for the price. Why not? Sometimes you just have to live a little. You never know. You never know when you're going to think about like, oh man, I wish I had a pirate hat right now. So you just commit to it. I mean, it's 3:31 a.m. It's just about the time to wear a pirate hat if you're going to wear one. Flesh and Blood comic win, says Cipher 1001. See, that's great. I'm not casting the finals in this hat, but you could consider that. You could definitely consider that. Hats confirmed as the next Flesh and Blood talent. Playtime TCG knows what's up.
All right. I'm a beautiful flower.
It's 4:30 where you are, so I could see why you've decided to don the hat. The sun will be shining soon.
Mm-hmm. That's where we're at right now.
I'm so okay. So all this talk. Oh, they're back. I'm taking the hat off. I got to get focused. This is important, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know why this is important? Because we're moving into. Look, I just tabbed over. There's the commentators. We are moving into the finals of the Calling Taiwan. It all comes down to this. Everything is on the line. We have a wonderful matchup between the Chain player and the Starvo player. Now, the Chain player we just watched, the Starvo, it could be the result of the quarterfinals match, or it could be the other Starvo list. We're not quite sure yet. Nevertheless, we are in for a real treat to see if Starvo can pull out the win here at Calling Taiwan and earn some of those Living Legend points, getting closer and closer, or if Chain picks it up and just shows everybody how this thing goes. And as you can see, it's Chain versus Starvo time.
It's definitely Chain versus Starvo time, and it's great to see Chain in the finals again. I know that a lot of people might just be exhausted from 2021, as it were, seeing Chain all over the place. But here we are, in the knee deep in 2022. Chain making another resurgence. It seems like there's every time you can count him out, he shows up again and again.
Yep.
Having him win this tournament is quite it would be quite the story, frankly, ultimately, as I don't believe Starvo won the Battle Hardened in Taiwan. Starvo did not win the Battle Hardened in Madrid. So there's all kinds of opportunities for Starvo to continue its, the dominance, but ultimately has been falling short a lot lately. So this chain game is going to be great to watch. The difference here, I believe, Armada, is I'm wondering if Luo Shengzhen was perhaps keeping an eye on the previous game and maybe just getting some information and saying, okay, you lost to that chain player. How did you approach it? Were you aggressive? Were you fatiguing? Like, what is your strategy? And this might factor into how this game is played, because if it comes down to just a quote unquote slobber knocker, then the chain player, in my opinion, has the advantage. So we'll see how this one shapes out. But I'm quite intrigued to see the strategy employed against chain here.
Yeah, and this is the Starvo player that we did not see in quarterfinals. So he picked up the win against the Starvo player we did see, Yinwei, in the quarterfinals. No, sorry, he picked it up against him in the semifinals, which of course propelled him here to the finals, where they are playing for keeps and for that beautiful, absolutely fantastic Fiendel Spring Tunic. One of only a few left in the world to be won. I don't think this is the last one on the table, but I could be wrong. This may be the last Fiendel Spring Tunic that is up for grabs before that card rides off into the sunset as far as prizing is concerned, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, imagine how much one of those is gonna go for, on the open market. Those things are so limited but so coveted. It's not just a matter of, hey, it's a pretty card. It's just the story that's behind it, right? So that's always fascinating.
So here we are, Chain versus Starvo. Not sure who won the die roll and elected to go first. We'll see as they play out this opening turn, and we'll see if we can make out so many like early game cards that they might be holding in hand.
It comes down to seeding, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh,
like whoever's the high,
yeah, I think you might be correct.
The higher seed will always, or the better seed rather, will always get to choose first or second, and typically the first seems to be the way to go these days. So I'm suspecting that I believe the Starvo player.
Oh, it looks like Chain's acting first. Very interesting. In doing so, he's making a Soul Shackle, and then what is he going to follow this up with? He could just consider, like making a Rune Chant in passing, so not to give the Starvo player the opportunity to sort of cycle and set up for a trigger on their turn one. Very interesting.
Strategically pitching here, you pitch like a red, and then it's something like maybe two reds to create a Rune Chant, as it were,
right.
And then you go from there. That's usually a good way to do it. Plus, you're stacking some powerful cards for late game, but ultimately you have to have those cards in hand first to make that work. So there's there you go. So okay,
come across with just a casual 2, which does give him the opportunity to filter and block with cards. He's going to block with an Autumn's Touch here. Not taking any damage, but he will follow this up, pitching away, making that Rune Chant, and then just passing it on over, I would imagine, arsenaling the last card in hand. This succeeded in getting a single block and allowing a single cycle card for the opponent, but it also allows him to set up a Rune Chant plus a Soul Shackle. No Starvo trigger at the beginning, instead just pitching away. And then coming across with just the casual Oakenol double fused anyway. He just comes across with it anyway. Oh, and look, he's got the double Talisman of Tithes hand. So 2 non-block cards. Looking at this is a rough hand to have into that.
Well, there's a Belittle and there's a Captain's Call. So your Belittle's not even finding a card, I think, to even match with, right? So you're tossing cards away here, it feels like.
I don't know if you ever consider equipment blocking this. You may just take the damage and toss the hand. Yeah, he's going to throw 1 card in front of it. Be content to keep a single card. Most likely those are all just for pitch, and you're just going to do something simple on your turn. Those 2 cards will go to the bottom. Last card in the hand. That'll discard. And then on your turn, you do get a Soul Shackle banished, so you could do something along the lines of that. And you do hit a blue. I think it's a blue bounding there.
That is a blue bounding, and just curious to see what he managed to hang on to. There's the talisman.
Hey. He's going to slam the talisman down, I guess. It does have natural go again, and he is going to come in with the 1 Rune Chant plus the bounding Demagon. there. So it does allow him to sort of stable or establish that Talisman of Tithes, preventing a Crown of Seeds. In response, look at this. He's going to choose to Talisman of Tithes, pop, and then force the Crown of Seeds not to draw him a card, which is pretty fun. That Rune Chant, will he actually pitch to stop it? Probably not. He's going to take the rest of it. So he takes the 1 plus the bounding damage as well.
The thing about the talisman is it exists on the board for, you know, the majority of the game anyways, or until it's used ultimately. So I mean, just get it off the board as soon as you can at this juncture in the game where you're at 40 life. I mean, now's the time to do it. You don't want this to sort of stuff you late game where you might be able to close out. So that's one of them God. The other one went to the bottom of the deck. So that's going to be some late game banishment, I believe, anyways. And here comes hammer time. So we're going to pitch an icy encounter, come in with a hammer for 4. You got a little frostbite tax on that bad boy if it gets through. So evaluating the hand here, you're only on shackle 2. So I think that you could still give up some cards if necessary, if you want to, because you're not going to have that explosive turn unless the hand he's holding onto right now is in itself very, very strong.
Yeah. Plus, it also matters what we're looking at as far as arsenal is concerned. If you can just pay your way through the frostbite, you may consider taking some damage. Nevertheless, if you throw some cards at this and hit a decent shackle or 2, you can still play a very nice turn. Really, you're looking for those moments where you can draw into and then follow up and play an Art of War. And you like to hit that in that mid-game time frame. He's going to just choose to full block this, blocking for 5 on the 4 there so he doesn't get the frostbite, leaving himself with a 2-card hand plus an arsenal and banishing 2. Banish 2 off the top, doesn't hit on either of them. The danger of running things like Captain's Call and Reek of Corruption is that, and several other cards in this deck, and you kind of have to run these nowadays because you don't have the ease of playing out like Seeds of Agonies and things like that, is that sometimes you're just gonna banish those over and over and over again.
Right. I mean, you don't have exactly. Seeds of Agony is 9 cards out of your deck that were hits, right? They're basically free plays that you could go ahead and shackle through and feel good about banishing and being able to play for free. And no more Plunder Run either, which is a big card that Chain like to play as well. But you're going to have to fill those spaces with something. And if there's nothing possible, you got to. It's a matter of best fit, right? And in certain cases, Captain's Call is that best fit. But by means of giving something go again if necessary, or giving it +2 and doing what you got to do. But here comes
with the fuse,
yeah, here it comes. So this is the clapback.
Down flash, or is he just showing him flash to see what he's got there? I would imagine.
Reading it, get go again on a card that's attack for 2 or greater. That's the blue flash, and that was pitched, so it's not attacked. But
that's right.
So there was a fusion here. So that is I believe that's a 9 go again. And it is dominated, but it's just vanilla damage. So there's going to be no on-hit effects here, but 9 is 9, baby. And if you can only block with one thing, well, I don't think that Carrion Husk is on the menu just yet. You're probably saving that. That's hunting for an Oakenold is my thought for sure. But ultimately, that getting that card out, eventually, the more damage Chain eats, if he finds bad banishes, and eventually those Oakenolds late game are going to be incredibly devastating.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where you can actually just, because it is vanilla damage, you can actually be okay taking this. It's the ones that discard cards or mess with your hand. Those are the power cards, of course. And as Chain, you have some dance around as far as just like playing things from banished instead. But here you're just maybe full content to just take most of this, and then, of course, consider what you want to do as far as a Frostbite is concerned. And he's just going to equipment block here so that he can keep a full hand and try to push damage. I want to go back a turn or so with the red Reek Corruption. This is why I like Reek Corruption in general, because Reek Corruption in that moment was pushing a breakpoint. I believe that is the red in the discard pile. Was pushing a breakpoint that is awkward to block, and because he had Soul Shackled on that turn, it was threatening a discard, so it forced cards out of the Starvo's hand. Unfortunately for the Chain player, it ended up not being able to stop the fuse, but he took the damage and dropped to 24 life in response.
As it stands over here, the Chain player has been taking a beating down to 24 health. Luo Shengsun at 36 on Starvo. Equipment use one swing with the Creator Fist has been blocked already. You still have a full Stalagmite, and I feel like that is going to be imperative. We've seen the previous Starvo player play with the Rampart of the Ram's Head against Chains. Stalagmite's a different flavor here. You're not getting the sort of the everlasting ability of being able to block over and over, but I don't think you need to, because just giving a Frostbite to a Chain player at an opportune time can really pump the brakes on their entire game plan here. So that is a key difference between the previous match that we watched that was won by Chain to this one now, because that's a very, very important piece of equipment that late game can really change the tides.
Yeah, looking at this hand, there's an interesting setup here where you would love to just jam out a bunch of attacks, but without something buffing them up like an Art of War, or without like the extra ability to, just in general push go again attacks across the board. It doesn't look like he has a non-attack in hand, so he can't like creepers things unless I'm missing one of those cards as a non-attack. Perhaps the I think it's a Shadow Puppetry in Arsenal would allow him to snake together a few of these go-agains and a few of these attacks more than what might be expected. It's just figuring out that line of when to play it and how to play it out to get maximum number of cards out of your opponent's hand. It's a tough line to walk, and looking at the Starvo player's hand, looks like he's got 2 Winter's Grasps and I think 2 of the same Earth card as well, which is kind of a funky draw, but it also means that you don't have a fuse trigger on that time. So how do you play this out from the defending side of things will be very interesting. He does have a Invert Existence in hand. He's going to Shackle and then push Ghostly Visit for 4, and then cause the Crown of Seeds reaction, or instant speed Crown of Seeds with the Tunic resource.
Crown of Seeds, such an incredible card, so much power in that one piece. You know, when that card was printed, reading it, you're thinking like, okay, you know, what is the real ceiling of what this card can do? You know, you knew it was good. It was a legendary piece of equipment, etc. But in reality, the sheer amount of value that card can really give to a deck that like Starvo that wants to find very specific pieces to get things going.
He is going to Creepers a Howl from Beyond here, which does allow him that second action point to push extra damage and also push some of these attacks either out of his hand or out of that banished zone. As we were talking about, well, let's see. Yes, that's going to push 3 plus whatever's in his arsenal or whatever's in his hand, or that, I think it's a blue bounding. I can't quite make out the color there.
That is banished on the side. I believe that's red. Again, sorry for the... I could be wrong here again. It's almost 5 in the morning, but it's been a long day. The colors and shapes and everything are all just blending together. But what we do see here, at the very least, is a fairly significant move of a pretty powerful push. That's 7 coming through. Again, the calculations are there, and we're just taking a look at what's going on. The cards are being placed on the table. There's a little bit of a... I believe that something's, I don't know if there was a judge that came through. We're not sure exactly what's going on, as both players are just kind of waiting for the resolution of something to happen here. As we see, that's exactly what's going on. Not sure what the deal is. As somebody in my chat mentioned that they did pick up a clip here, that there was a potential, an issue with perhaps when some of the cards were placed to the bottom due to Okinold.
Right.
So that is what's being brought up here. Potentially, we're not entirely sure what the situation is, but somebody in my chat, Elmactronic. I'm sorry if I'm saying that.
There's been a conversation continually going, I think, since that moment where there were 2 cards forced to the bottom, where it's wondering what happened with that interaction and if cards got tucked to the bottom correctly. Nevertheless, whether or not that plays out that way, we'll have to wait and see what judge ruling happens, or if this is related to that in any way, shape, or form. Because, again, we don't actually have any information being where we are located. We're just sitting and watching alongside of all of us as well, hopefully providing you enough insight and entertainment to, I guess, keep your morning going. Is it morning wherever most people are? I would imagine.
I mean, I see the... I don't see the light breaking over the horizon just yet, but we're almost there. Nonetheless, like you mentioned, this is we don't have a direct line to Taiwan or to any or to LSS or to judging or anything. So the information we have is probably the same information that you guys have. So we don't want to speculate. That's not for us to do. We don't like to make assumptions, because that's what gets kind of gets you in trouble, as it were. But ultimately, that I think is what's getting reviewed. If I'm not mistaken, that's what we could probably assume, Steve, is that that's probably what's getting looked at right now. There's nothing else that really kind of threw off what was going on. It just seemed like there was just a judge that was brought to the table that was not called.
That's what it is. I would imagine.
Yeah.
And they have tabbed away to sort of a rolling set of I guess commercials, if you will, which have been, by the way, just as an aside, really cool to see how that's set up and watched. Nevertheless, I can't imagine it would be anything else except that whole process. So we'll just wait and see along with you. There's some people in my chat that are saying it's 8:48 p.m. here in New Zealand. How's it going in New Zealand? Happy, what is it? Sunday still, right? It's the end of Sunday.
I was gonna say, I don't remember when the last time was
Monday?
that I was on the same calendar day as New Zealand. Usually I'm sleeping now, so I've never been consciously on the same plane of existence as New Zealand. But welcome, New Zealand. It's nice to have you guys here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Calling Taiwan. My name is Flake. This is DM Armada, and we're bringing you the English broadcast across space and time. Some of you are in Tomorrowland. I'm in somewhere in the
well, technically we're in Tomorrowland, because it is like almost sunrise for you. Still, Fabled Hunter says 4:50 a.m. there along with you. You're not hanging out together, are you? That'd be kind of cool.
Well,
are they over there?
Yeah, no, we're not. Though, I mean, I don't know what part of the East Coast is quite the large expanse of land. I am in Toronto, Canada. So
this is cool. Look, 10:50 a.m. in Sweden. I hope things are going well in Sweden right now.
We've got a 3:50 a.m. here. I don't know if there's. I think there's typically. So we got someone from the Midwest of the United States hanging out over here. I don't know who else overseas, perhaps, but yeah, we're going. This might be the best sort of chunk of time on the where we can get the most amount of people, right?
That's interesting, isn't it? We are all hanging out at like a decent hour, except the two of us, maybe. The two of us may I mean, it's like 3:50 a.m. here, but if I were like super dedicated and just like was one of those people that like Benjamin Franklin style woke up super early in the morning, went to bed at like 5:30 p.m. after a spot of dinner of just like tepid toast and like fish, and then I go to sleep at 5:30, wake up at 3 a.m. and just like, I don't know, write a book or something, then it would be the perfect time for me. Otherwise, it's really early.
There's that episode of Seinfeld where I think Kramer decides that in order to be more productive, he sleeps 20 minutes every hour, because it essentially it amounts to the same thing, but it just ruins his life. We've got Australia, 7 p.m. and a couple, some more Alberta and California and all over the place. So and another Toronto. So welcome, everybody.
What time is it in Taiwan right now?
I believe they're exactly 12 hours ahead of where I am. So 13 hours ahead of you, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but that seems correct.
Gotcha. So closing in on the dinner hour. At this point, I might as well just stay up. I mean, you might as well just stay up.
I mean, I like that. I should just go into the lobby of my apartment with a newspaper, and the next person I see be like, "Oh, look who's here! Look who finally got up!" That's all. My parents used to do this to me all the time. When I lived at home many years ago, I used to be a night owl. Like, I used to, mind you, I also used to work at like restaurants and bars and coffee shops that were open until like midnight or 1 a.m. So I would work till midnight or 1 a.m. I'd get home at like 2. By the time I'd wind down to be 3, so I'd go to bed at 3, and then he'd be like, it's 10 o'clock. What are you still doing in bed? I'm like, you had your 8 hours. Like, we're on different schedules. Like, and my dad's favorite line was normal people wake up at 6. I'm like, there's nothing about me that's normal. Not a thing. Don't even start with me. So, yeah. So yeah, so a confirmation. Taiwan is precisely 12 hours ahead of me and 13 hours ahead of you. So
There
yeah,
you
dinner
go.
hour.
For
Yeah.
me, I could probably make this work. I mean, I just go get the coffee that I brewed earlier and just down more of that. My kids are gonna wake up and okay, look, I've got a 5-year-old. Everyone, this is a personal story. You ready? If you don't want to hear any personal, maybe I shouldn't tell personal information on the internet. I have a five
Yeah.
year. I don't care. I'm gonna do it. I have a
I was gonna say,
5-year-old that really wakes up literally every day on the dot at 6 a.m. So I'm gonna see him in 2 hours. So at this point, maybe we just make this an all-day stream. Would that be interesting? I don't know. We could play our own games of Flesh and Blood. What decks do you have right now? What do you got? You got anything
oh,
out next to you? Like I
well,
can grab anything at the
okay.
glance.
Look at my eyes. Look at my eyes. Do these eyes look like they can stay up for that much longer? Like I don't think so.
I think
It,
so. I think you could manage it.
you're a cruel tyrant, aren't you, Steven?
I just I've learned to just survive on little sleep and coffee, and it's working out for me thus far.
Yeah, but you had kids. I didn't. That's the whole point. Like I
that
knew that is the first thing that goes. I get it. I get the trade-off. You know, like a child, a legacy, happiness, like pride, fulfillment, joy. Yeah, screw that. Sleep's great. Like that's kind of where I'm at, and
I
I
have
get
heard
it.
that sleep is great. I have to try it sometime. One day I'll give that a whirl. But until then, I'm just gonna play Flesh and Blood at 4 in the morning after
Are you
waiting
busting
for
out
a
the?
judge call.
Are you busting out the decks? Is that what you're doing?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not busting out the decks.
Oh man.
Guys, look, here's while we wait, and they were almost all the way off the rails, but not quite, because this is Flesh and Blood related. While we're looking, I have this fun chain deck built for Ultimate Pit Fight. And you know what's in it? Drowning Dire? Look at that. Okay,
Oh.
sorry. I'll let chat ask me questions. You got any questions over there?
Is Seeds of Agony legal in Ultimate Pit Fight?
Is Seeds of
I
Agony?
believe it
Yes,
is.
it is. Yeah, it is. Seeds of Agony is legal in Ultimate Pit Fight. I know because it's in this deck.
Oh.
Don't hate. Don't hate. It's in this deck. I had to make it. Spicy in some ways, but it's pretty memey because it runs Lord Sutcliffe in UPF. Which, by the way, if you don't know, Lord Sutcliffe deals you damage in addition to everybody else. So you basically just hit yourself a bunch with this deck. It's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun little Ultimate Pit Fight deck.
So one thing that we were not, what's the term? That everyone out there is not necessarily privy to is, I'm going to show you guys right now, is all these wonderful, I don't want to call them commercials, but these are all LGSs from the region of where the calling in Taiwan is taking place. Basically, a lot of these LGSs submitted videos to be played during this. And there's one particular one. This is on a loop. So I have seen this like 80
Yes.
times by now.
Yes, we both have. We've watched all the way through this. I just want before you say it, I just want to say all of these are actually really great, and I think this is a fantastic touch.
I think so too, because each one of them, I guess they've had a lot of liberty in terms of how they want to present it. But what I found is that there's so much personality within the stores themselves, because the people who are running the stores run them to, to their own desire, to their own design as well and whatnot. But there's so much actual personality that just radiates out of these places. And there's one specifically that when it pops up, I have to stop you and we have to watch it, because you guys, I promise you, you have never seen a LGS like this one. It has smoke machines.
Yep.
It has breakdancing.
Yep.
When it shows up, I am not going to spoil anymore, but it is the coolest damn thing possible.
Okay.
And when that one shows up, I'll show you.
My question for you, sir, is what's the coolest local game store you've ever been to? Because the coolest local game store I've ever been to is in San Antonio, Texas, and the entire store is decked out to look like a medieval castle. All the way down to the tables that you play at are long mead hall tables, like literal Viking wooden tables. There are side rooms that are, and the entire place is like stuccoed and plastered to look like like you're inside of like a stone castle. There's torches on the walls for light. They're fake. There's a room with a sliding wooden door that when you go into, it's literally just a giant amphitheater type room made for D&D players. It's got a sound system, it's got a giant projector TV, then it's like it got like the Roll20 app set up. It is incredible. Fantastic. It's the best place I've ever been to for like LGS style. What do you got?
No, well, that does sound awesome. I was just picturing like medieval times style, where like
it's
people,
that. Yeah, it's that.
But like, but then the next immediate thing I think about is someone eating an entire pheasant with their hands and then trying to like touch my cards. I'd be like, get out of here, you psycho! That's disgusting. That sounds pretty damn awesome. I've never been to something to that degree. I mean, the best game store I know right now is Harry Tarantula in Toronto, purely because the people that go there, the organization of it, the content that's in that place, they have all kinds of awesome stuff. Plus, the people that work there and that go there are just awesome.
I have heard of that place, but I couldn't tell you why. I guess you hear about a good LGS because they're good, right?
It's if you go to it's harryt.com, but I mean, like, the website is not going to do it justice. It's like an institution here in Canada. It's like some of the best players in the world play there, like multiple champions of like across various titles. So it's damn awesome.
Paul Avers in my chat was asking about this local game store. By the way, it's called Night Watch Games. Google it. You can see the interior. He said, "Can you get a turkey leg?" No. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe so. That would be pretty sick. They'll add it as an expansion. They actually just added an expansion to the store itself to sell like Renaissance Fair garb. So you can literally just go and like buy an entire Renaissance Festival outfit. It's pretty cool. It's good for flesh and blood, right?
Dude, that'd be a great price. Instead of like, it's like, okay, you top eighted, like you finished in that 4 to 8 bracket, and you're like, or the 5 to 8 bracket, and you're like, all right, do you want 6 packs of unlimited or a gigantic turkey leg? I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, turkey leg sounds pretty damn decent when it's like, what's like unlimited what? Yeah, give me the turkey leg.
Yeah,
we're good with that.
I'll take the giant turkey leg.
Yeah, I have enough Tales of Aria. Let's go with the turkey leg.
That is my favorite Renaissance Festival snack. I don't know if that's like a weird thing to say. If people are like, let's go ahead and make a tier list for Renaissance Festival snacks as I type on the computer with my weird meat hands like this shape. But if you did do that, turkey leg number 1, funnel cake number 2.
But CK, I don't know what I know what a turkey leg is. I don't know what a funnel cake is. Like, what is a funnel cake? Like, I picture some sort of like a funnel shaped kind of a thing made of like waffle, like a waffle cone.
Yeah,
is that what that is?
Basically, take like a batter. Could be like a waffle batter, but it's usually lighter and a little bit more airy. Maybe it's kind of close. You take like a batter, you put it in a squeeze bottle. You get some hot oil. You squeeze the batter like this a bunch, and it just makes a bunch of tendrils of delicious cake-like breading. And then you take it out, you put it on a plate after it's golden brown and delicious. You let some of the grease come off, and then you douse it with powdered sugar, and you're done. Boom, boom,
so
boom.
we have something in Canada, and all the Canadians that are in my chat right here will know. It's called a beaver tail. Do you know what a beaver tail is?
No, I don't.
Oh, man. If you're ever in Canada, go and ask for a beaver tail. It's basically like it's like fried dough, flattened and like looks like a beaver tail, and then it's basically dressed the way you want it, like almost like a pizza. But you don't. You put stuff. You put like you're like, what do you want on it? Like, some people are like caramel and M&Ms. Some people are just like powdered sugar, like old school, nothing else. Some people are just want like Nutella and pieces of Reese's peanut butter cups or something like that. Like,
right as you said that, okay, just you said the word beaver tail, and Jay Ueda in my chat said in all caps, beaver tails, and then you're talking about it and you come across with the word Nutella, and he types Nutella right at the same time, and then James Armstrong follows up, says beaver tails rock.
Right? I'm telling you. I mean, like when it comes down to Canadian cuisine, beaver tails, I would even say poutine is up there, but I mean, that's more of a Quebec thing. But beaver tails, man, like let's be real. I've never had a funnel cake, but I've had a beaver tail and I was never disappointed. But at a Renaissance fair, I mean, the turkey leg is S tier. Let's be real.
It's got to be S tier, right?
But for not just for taste and nutrition, but for aesthetic of looking like an absolute boss holding a turkey leg.
Oh, come on. Yeah, totally.
And let's be real, you're also like you've got the beaver tail in your hand. I have a Canadian flag here, but this is my beaver tail. You can use it to accentuate and articulate and punctuate what you want to say. So you're eating it and you're like, someone's like, "Excuse me, sir, where's the funnel cake stand?" You'd be like, "Well, you take two things that way, you hang a left, and then you go right around the loom. And once you're there, you go to the funnel cake place." You can use it like it's kind of like a wand, you know?
Yeah.
That's just me.
Nevertheless, if you're just joining us and you're wondering why we're talking about fried dough at 4 and 5 in the morning, well, first of all, it's almost breakfast time.
Yeah,
Second
man.
of all, we're awaiting the judge call in a finals of a pivotal game, deciding who wins the Calling Taiwan. An unfortunate moment wherein there was an issue, and again, this is not something that we specifically probably can or should be commenting on as far as what judge would possibly rule in this scenario. But to give it to you straight up, there's an issue wherein an Oaken that I believe was fused, or any attack that forced out 2 cards from hand, I believe it was an Oaken put to the bottom of the deck, on a 3-card hand from the chain player. 2 of the cards that were selected to go to the bottom, for a moment, made their way over to the 3rd card that would have stayed in hand, and the question is, was there a swap made to allow the chain player to play out a card that would have been tucked otherwise? And again, I am not going, and we probably aren't going to comment on whether or not we think it one way or the other, because it's really just not something that we can nor probably should speak on. It's really something that the judges should take care of, and that's their point and their job, and they do a fantastic job with it. As we see here, they're being called in. So from this point, we just play the waiting game to see what ruling is given down and to see what is assessed, if any penalty whatsoever is placed in place. It's a tough spot to be in, I guess, for all parties, including everyone watching at home, because I'm sure we all want to see this game play out to the utmost of both just entertainment value, but also integrity. And so hopefully we see some definitive conclusion coming down the pipeline.
Well, you're exactly right, and like it's not good to speculate or assume anything, and that's why we're not going to, because we don't know, we're not there, and it's not like we didn't catch it, you know, and some others did, and that's where it is. And even then, we don't even know if that's what the judge was called or what happened.
This is true.
You know?
Actually, we actually don't know. And even if I'll say this too, even if we did catch it, it's not exactly we are not set up to go, hey, there's a thing that we should look at. And you know what? Honestly, people at home in chat might be better set up for, wave down and that sort of thing. People in the venue judges, of course, are able to come over. And so it really falls into the hands of those people. And of course, awesome people in chat that are always eagle-eyed watching and all of that. Nevertheless, we are going to entertain you at all hours of the night.
Damn right.
By talking about beaver tails.
Beaver tails.
It's so what's close for dinner.
I'm so close to, it's 5 a.m. It's a little after 5 a.m. I'm so close to calling my dad and being like, "Oh, you're not up?"
On stream. What you have to do is call him on stream. Don't put it on speaker, but just make sure we understand.
Oh, I would put him on speaker. I mean, he's I would just completely call him out and be like, "Oh, you're not up? Real people get up at this hour and are working at this hour." But yeah, no, that's just how it goes. We won't do it. I don't think it's proper for me to have conversations that are meant to be private on the phone. I mean, entertainment value.
My question is, after this is all said and done, do I go to sleep? I'm still mulling this over. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good. The coffee that was generously donated by a fantastic member of the Flesh and Blood community is still going strong for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I hear stirring in the other room? I hope not.
It's your son being like, "I'm trying to sleep, god damn it," you know.
Stop talking. These walls are thin.
I've got to say, I'm slightly fading here, but we're going to get through it.
We'll carry
We're going
each
to
other.
get
Don't
through.
worry.
I know.
We're just like this community. We will lock arms, carry each other to a hopefully positive conclusion for someone.
Little through space and time high five. We're doing that.
Well, I'm on this side.
Oh, you're on that side.
I'll do this just for you.
Okay, we'll do this one first.
Boom,
Perfect. Boom. And then I guess on this side is the other one.
Hey. Oh, see, that one looked pretty good on my end.
I know it looked ridiculous on my end. I thought I didn't know. Am I in the?
Go ahead.
No, I'm on my. I'm on the right on my side. I don't know. I gave you a left seat on this one.
Yeah, I'm on the left on mine. That's weird. Why didn't we line up?
Am I mirrored?
I'm
maybe.
Flipped. I bet you I'm flipped.
You're probably.
I always flip.
Possibly. I gave you the left.
I'm gonna crash hard in like 2 hours. You just have a second wind. Man, here's the thing. I always have a second wind. You better watch out. World, you better watch out. I always have a second wind. If I need it, I can find it. Dig down deep. Cast the Calling Taiwan. Actually, this has been incredibly fun. And it's fun hanging out with people in chat. Like, I don't understand. I didn't expect there to be this many people in chat, and I am totally here for it. Everybody that's out there, no matter where you are in this world, I think you're fantastic for showing up and hanging out for the entirety of this finals and this entire top 8. It is wonderful to see you all. Look, Fabled Hunter's here. Presto TCG calling it out like a minute after it happened.
The potential little tuck and peel there with the wrong card potentially. We don't know. I can't let a slip of the tongue. Oh, hold on. It's finally time. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, let's go. I don't have the sound on.
I don't have the sound either. It doesn't matter. But take a look at this particular LGS. First of all, this guy looks like Magnum PI. Looks like a complete boss. The sell job on this place is top tier. Look at the passion.
I just also want to say, like, I don't know if that's the outside, but if it is, it's super coolly stylized. And if it's the inside, it's even more stylized because they just plastered like those sweet Flesh and Blood posters on the outside. They got like the neon, like old world aesthetic with that old door, but the neon lights right next to it.
Yeah, look at that coffee, Breezy.
Oh,
look at that
let's go.
DJ? There's a DJ?
Mm-hmm. There's the fog. Look at that. Look at the inside of that place. Let's go hang out there. Hey, everybody.
You got to dodge darts flying across your head?
That's right. Hop on a flight. Let's all go hang out.
There's an open mic. There's a modeling session going on, apparently. Like, look at the things going on in this place.
That person was drinking out of a skull cup. How do you not do that?
And look at that. That's how everything is basically decided. Breakdancing.
By the way,
you get into the top 8. It's like, you know, like how they have like a split formats. It's
this
like
is the illicit underground Flesh and Blood ring. This is where it takes place, and I am so here for it.
Yeah,
I don't see. I actually don't know the name of that store, but I wish I did because I would put that on my short list of places to go.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where we need to be because honestly, I know that your LGS that you talked about was pretty damn cool. You got like the medieval theme or whatever, but I'm sorry. Like the new way that callings should be done, it's 3 rounds CC, 3 rounds limited. 3 rounds of breakdancing. That to me, and then there's apparently like an open mic that happens at the end. Like that is so damn cool. I would be all about that. Sure.
It would be the perfect time fill right now. While we're waiting for like judges to deliberate, we can just hit up the karaoke. The live band could play us out. You know, that sort of stuff.
Somebody dropped in, says Vespa Yetter says the shop name is Tortuga.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's in Thailand. Tortuga reminds me of something. Like it sounds like the island of Tortuga. Is that a thing? Is it a pirate thing?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
In the Caribbean.
I wasn't aware. I don't know much about pirate lore.
No,
is it okay. Caribbean or Caribbean?
It's whatever you want, man. I'm not judging.
All right.
Also, shout out to Melody Likes. Says, I need this LGS in my life. This is sick.
Oh, this is Melody Likes, who I recently subscribed to on YouTube, who has 0 videos up. And I told her, I said, all right. And I gave her one of these. I said, oh,
gave her
let's
the
go.
old time. Gave her the old
Damn
time.
right.
Let's do this thing.
Yeah, I said, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. No content seen, so I'm putting her on blast here. Yeah, basically. So,
Breezy's back in chat. Breezy, the
man.
provider of the coffee that is, I don't want to say single-handedly keeping this stream going, but it's definitely helping this half of the stream continue. So kudos to Breezy out there. Everyone, like shout out Breezy.
You know what we should do?
Always be proud fabled champion. First dibs is a given. Matt Rogers.
Dude, we should start taking calls like it's a call-in show.
Oh my god.
Hello.
Dude, straight up pirate radio.
Taiwan. Yeah, that would be so good. We should have a call-in overnight. Exactly. This is Armada and Flake. You're on the air.
Can we do that? Are we allowed to do that?
Absolutely. I don't know if we're allowed. Well, allowed. Like, this is our own thing, right? We could do whatever the hell we want within reason. But all we'd have to do, I think, is we just have to get someone in on our Discord call. We'd have to. And they,
Flake,
you
made Melody burning up with embarrassment.
What do you mean?
That's
I didn't mean to. Okay. First of all, back it up. Let's just pump the brakes on this. Let's just dial it back 20%, okay? Here's the deal, Melody. You are an immensely positive force within the Flesh and Blood community, and we're very, very lucky that you're there, just shining all of your joy right into our faces at all times. I'm just saying, you said, hey, we need to get some more subscribers on this YouTube channel. So what did I do? Easy. Click, bang, subscribe, notifications, all that other stuff. I think you got my blood type and my social security number, the whole 9 yards.
Solid plug right there. I mean, really what it is that old double plug, right?
But big fat goose egg on the content. But listen, I'm not saying this is not to call her out. What I'm saying is that I am so ready.
Oh, okay. Ready. That's a good play around. Yeah, I'll show you how you turned it there. I like that.
Just saying, you know.
Big shout out to Drew Jacobson sending message retracted. No, never mind. He took a message. Never mind. I thought he posted that. That'd be weird.
Message retracted.
Hey, while we're plugging people out, I just want to say this guy, this fine-looking gentleman to my right, you should go check him out on all the socials. Like,
who's on your right?
Watch you. It's you. It's you.
It's me.
I'm talking about you. You should go hit him up on all his socials.
I was like, who's there?
At Watch Flake on Twitter. You gotta do the follow there. You probably follow him already. Dude's like a massive celebrity on Twitter.
That is not a true statement at all.
I don't know how Twitter works, so I'm just gonna assume that you are. And then also, he's live on Twitch right now, like exclusive on Twitch. So go hit that up, man.
Okay, so it's cut back to the commentators. I don't know what they are saying because I do not speak Mandarin. So, but as you can see here, they are explaining the situation, which we're gonna have to surmise, or someone's gonna have to actually communicate to us as to what's happening. I'm actually keeping an eye on the email because the only way that we are. Oh, okay. Earlier. So the game's back. We're back at it, but I guess they're. But this is the lives are back at 40.
Oh, did we run it?
They're just replaying what's happening. Okay, so here's the situation.
Yes. This is the moment, okay? And it's interesting from all perspectives because he tucks and then he looks at the 2 cards and he slides them to the left, and the 3rd card stays on the mat there. And this is the play that's under suspicion. And when you watch it, I don't know. It is definitely hard to look at that and come away thinking everything's on the up and up, just because as far as, and this is just in general, I don't think when you're playing out your turns, best practices indicate that if someone is selecting for you, it's a good idea to not mix your hand of cards with the hand that is being like separated, with the cards being separated, just to keep everything on the up and up. And no matter whether or not anything is intentional or unintentional, to avoid all problems like this, you want to keep your hand and any selected cards separate. Because if you say, well, this swap or what looks like a swap was completely unintentional, it's very hard to say that retroactively if something happened, right?
Yeah, they're currently interviewing the winner, which was the Starvo player in that particular game. So there you have it.
Called it then.
Yeah, that's precisely what happened. And even if, and this is what's being said in my chat as well, that even if it is a mistake, you shouldn't be that sloppy. And in reality, like you mentioned, Armada, frankly, the best thing to do in these situations, just to avoid any doubt or any kind of mix up, even if it was or was not intentional, the way that I do it, and I'm not saying this is the way everyone should do it, I put, if there's a mechanic or something where people need to peel cards out of my hand randomly or based on their selection, I put the cards down right next to each other on the board, and I say, you touch or you do what you got to do, and then I will put the cards in my hand, and then I will put that way there's no issue whatsoever. But ultimately, I believe, listen, we don't know for sure 100% because we were not there, but from what Steven and I can surmise is that was the transgression, which the penalty, I guess, was a disqualification, ultimately leading to a game win for the Starvo players. So again, as much as we would all have loved to see a finals, there is a winner, and there's no diminishing the achievement of this player right here. And we'll put him on screen here so you guys can see. But there's no diminishing what this player achieved, getting through the calling, getting to the finals, and winning the calling in Taiwan. So major congratulations are due, and nothing taken away from this win.
No. It's unfortunate that the entire match wasn't able to play out to its fruition. But as you said, he had to work his way all the way through 2 days of grueling Swiss rounds and then play in every single match up to this point. So all kudos go out to the winner. And it's one that it's a tough way to kind of go out, especially if, like, from a professional standpoint or a competitive standpoint. There's a lot of players that want to win at the top levels their way, but don't let that dissuade public opinion, because the grind to get here is something that not everyone can do. I mean, obviously, because not everyone did it. So kudos to the winner of the Calling Taiwan. And unfortunately, we don't have much else to talk about outside of more baked goods.
I've got half a frozen pizza that I didn't eat.
Whatever chat wants to talk about.
Are you doing it? Are you staying up? What's your deal?
I don't know. Chat needs to help me. What do we do here?
I'm tapping out.
I think it has to be done. I think we have to say goodnight. But at the very least, we have to say thank you to everyone who tuned in and watched us ramble about all the things we did. Because I for one had an absolute blast. I don't know about you.
I did indeed, and honestly, Steven, it's always my favorite thing to do is to not just hang out with you and chat with you, buddy, but just calling games is like the best. And agreed. I don't think it's hard to get more off topic than when you and I are just, waxing poetic about hats and beaver tails and all kinds of other things, like walking around with a turkey leg in your hand and just being able to be that kind of dude. But my man, I love you, buddy. So whenever the next one is, I want to do it. So we're gonna do it.
I would love to do this again. This would be a fantastic time, even if it's this early or this late. To me, this was a blast. It was a highlight of both my week and my whole flesh and blood experience. And hopefully, we all get to hang out again over the internet. People want to have box breaks right now. They want box battles. They want more spoilers for Icelander. But I can't necessarily do that for you. But what I can do is give you the good old salute. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great morning, evening, wherever you're at. You're fantastic for coming and hanging out with us, and we are thankful that you're part of this community. Goodbye.
Friends, good night and all that stuff. We'll see you in New Jersey. So if you guys are going to New Jersey, we will be at the Pro Tour in New Jersey.
I'm going.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Be well.
And good luck.
Adios.